NASCAR has never seen a driver quite like John Hunter Nemechek. Not only is he a fierce competitor on the track, but he's also building a YouTube empire, bringing fans deeper into the life of a NASCAR driver than ever before.
It's about being the most valuable guy that I can be on the racetrack and off.
With more subscribers than NASCAR itself, he's redefining how the sport connects with its younger audience.
Growth has been insane. Not even 100,000 subscribers to over 1 million subscribers in less than a year.
But don't mistake the content grind for a distraction. JH is fully locked in on the mission. His training is brutal, his mindset is relentless, and he's chasing wins and championships with everything he's got. He's not just competing in NASCAR, he's changing the game while he's at it.
Kid now is on some type of social platform. So how do we bring that content to them to get them interested enough to come out and watch our races or come out and be a fan and different things of that sort?
Gypsy gang, welcome John Hunter Nemechek to the podcast. How many of your New Year's resolutions have you been able to keep so far? I've been able to keep on track with my daily nutrition habits as I'm still starting off each and every morning with AG1, the same way I have for years. 1 scoop a day or one of the convenient travel packs when I'm away at the races make it really easy to stay on track with my health goals. For me, the benefits of taking AG1 every day are super clear. Firstly, it just sets the day off on the right foot. Secondly, after years of taking AG1, I know how good it is for my digestion and overall gut health. My skin is clearer and my hair and nails are healthier. I love that AG1 is NSF certified for sport, meaning it's been independently tested for quality. When it comes to my health, I want something I can trust, and that's why I've been partnering with AG1 for so long. And AG1 is offering new subscribers a free $76 gift when you sign up. You'll get a welcome kit, a bottle of D3K2, and 5 free travel packs in your first box. So make sure you check out drinkag1.com/gypsytales to start your new year on a healthier note.
I met a gypsy.
Do people call you JH?
JH, John Hunter.
Yeah.
Pretty much anything but John. Cassie's the only one that calls me John.
That's so good.
Yeah.
That's like when you're in trouble, you're John.
Yeah.
John.
Pretty much. When she's being serious, it's John.
Yeah. No, I'm kind of in the same. So my full name's Jason, but
Okay.
like everyone calls me Jason.
Jace.
Like nobody except my wife and my mum when I'm actually in trouble.
That's
I,
wild.
I can relate, yeah.
Yeah. So like a little backstory on that, right? So my name was supposed to be Hunter. My family comes from the NASCAR world, and my dad's brother actually passed away from a wreck in Homestead, Miami in '97, right before I was born, like 2 months before I was born. So they wanted to name me after him, but they wanted to keep Hunter in the mix, and that's how it became John Hunter. So Hunter is my middle name, but everyone calls me that.
Yeah, right. That's wild.
Yeah.
A few famous hunters out there these days too, and you always think of like Hunter S. Thompson. I don't know if you.
I don't know that one.
Not too. Yeah, it's
No.
maybe too young.
Hunter
for that.
Lawrence, maybe.
Yeah, Hunter
That's about
Lawrence.
it.
Yeah. Hunter S. Thompson was like I guess you would say a journal. He like made this whole style of journalism. You ever seen the movie Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas? You ever heard it? Dude, there's a bit of a rabbit hole. If you want to go like down a Hunter rabbit hole, you could. Look at Hunter S.
What
Thompson.
year is that from?
Dude, I don't know. Look up like Hunter S. Thompson, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. He was crazy, dude. Like this journalist that he invented this whole style of journalism. It was called gonzo journalism. And it was like true, but it was like not true. Kind of like took you on this wild ride.
That's wild.
Hunter S. Thompson. He ended up on a ranch in Colorado. He became like the governor of, or like the mayor of Aspen, and like was friends with Johnny Depp and Bill Murray, and like Johnny Depp's played him in some movies and stuff. But yeah, crazy writing. So whenever I think of Hunter, I think of Hunter S. Thompson.
Huh.
Bit of a weird rabbit hole you could go down, you know.
I'm gonna have to dig into that for sure.
Yeah, there's some good plain material there.
Yeah, some good research material. Figure out where that comes from.
So you're number one NASCAR YouTube guy. How did that all happen?
So we didn't have a YouTube channel until 2021, I believe, 2021 or 2022.
Yeah.
And we took a deep dive on it. I had a guy that helped me, one of my best friends, kind of growing up, and we were able to capture content. Started in 19 capturing like behind the scenes content and different things of that sort. And just for a few races, 2020 rolled around and he was going to be full time with me. And then COVID shut down that plan. So we didn't really do anything. And then 21 rolled around and they kind of opened everything back up. And we worked really hard. There was a lot of content from behind the scenes stuff. YouTube shorts were like popping off.
Yeah.
And we got into that niche and really like kind of plucked one at a time and finally kind of got our account going and started getting views and subscribers and everything of that sort, and have continued to model that on from the short side, and have then created long form. I think in 2023 is when we started long form content. So it was really just shorts, 2021, 2022. And it's been great. Like the growth has been insane. 2023 was an amazing year for growth for us. Like I'm pretty sure we went from like not even 100,000 subscribers to over 1 million subscribers in less than a year.
Wow.
Yeah, it was insane.
That's awesome, dude.
So I think we're 1.4 million subscribers now or something like that on YouTube.
Yeah.
So we're the top driver in NASCAR, and we have more subscribers than NASCAR, the sanctioning body itself. So
it's wild, dude. Congrats,
it's so
man.
Neat. Thank you.
Yeah. Pull up the channel, Griff. That's awesome. And so what prompted that? Like, obviously you're a young dude. It's like, I wouldn't say it's an older sport, but you'd be like one of the younger guys and that generation, like we're like the YouTube generation, you know?
Yeah. So I think for me in this instance, I wanted to create something new, right? You hadn't really seen behind the scenes stuff from the NASCAR world. And I feel like NASCAR is one of the most accessible sports when it comes to the athlete, to the driver, to the team, like being in the garage with us, being at pre-race with us until literally we strap into the race car and we're getting ready to go race, right?
Yeah, like you're walking there and the fans can like, good luck, bro, like as you're on your way to step into the vehicle.
Yeah, and then for pre-race, so most racetracks, they don't have like a wall between pit road and the actual racetrack.
Yeah.
So they have it roped off, and fans are like probably 10 feet away from us, like right before we're strapping in for the national anthem, prayer, all of pre-race ceremonies. So like everyone is super close, friends are right there. It's just way different than really any other sport, right?
100%.
Like you see basketball, football. Supercross is more accessible, right, than those two sports, but it's like you don't really get to see the athlete or be there with them pregame or whatever it may be, and like you're literally with me until I am getting into the race car. So it's super, super neat. So that kind of transpired the behind the scenes content. Like what goes on? Like how can we tell this story of not only myself, but like the team aspect? Like what goes on during the week, what goes on at the racetrack, like how much goes into it as far as doing suite appearances, going to do different media appearances, to signing autographs and everything else that we get to do as a NASCAR driver, right? And it turned out really, really good. Like the content started flowing. We came up with the idea and we just continued to push the envelope from there to really understand kind of where that audience was. And shorts killed it, man. We got in at the right time.
Man, yeah, I'm stoked for you. Like it's rare that you have an athlete that's at the top level of a sport that really wants to kind of dive in. And we're seeing it more and more now, like Bryson DeChambeau, you know, like there's a bunch of guys that are kind of doing it. The Degans have done it, you know, better than anyone maybe. And they were, you know, maybe some of the first people to do it, but there's just so much power in creating your own platform, and it just gives you so much leverage. And, you know, to hear you say that you have more subscribers than NASCAR, it's like, doesn't blow my mind. Like, it's wild and it's crazy, but that doesn't blow my mind. That's kind of how it should be, given the, you know, your age and what you would have grown up watching. And, like, you would just understand the landscape in such a different way. And, man, I bet NASCAR just shakes their head. And they're just like, dude, what the hell?
Yeah, we don't, I guess we haven't had too many conversations with them on that side of things, right? From a subscriber standpoint or different things.
I probably don't want to talk about that with you.
Yeah, but they've done really well. NASCAR has, especially over the past 6 months of trying to help push us and our brands and continuing to grow the sport, right? Like you said, when you first thought earlier about NASCAR, right? It's kind of like an older generational sport, right? So for us as the younger generation coming in, and it seems like everyone keeps getting younger and younger and younger when they're stepping into the NASCAR ranks, how do we bring that millennial Gen Z, like the new generations to the sport, right? And part of that is from an entertainment aspect, like YouTube and different social platforms, right? Like every kid now is on some type of social platform. So how do we bring that content to them to get them interested enough to come out and watch our races or come out and be a fan and different things of that sort? But it's even like Bryson, like you said, like he's doing amazing on YouTube, and the way that they have kind of curated content over the last 2 years and really pushed the envelope on that side. Like, it's really cool to see guys in all these sports continuing to push the envelope when it comes to that.
Yeah, and I mean, he kind of had an image problem.
Yes.
I don't know how much you follow golf or you follow Bryson, but I mean, I met him. We did a shoot with him for Red Bull back in, I want to say like 2016, right when he was coming out of college. And he was the nicest, coolest guy. And then you get into his career and people just didn't like him. And it was very strange for me to see, because I had a in real life experience with him. You know, I was like, dude, he's like a pretty nice guy. Like, he's obviously probably smarter than the average person and like speaking on a different wavelength in a way. But I'm like, I don't get the negativity. But for whatever reason, it was there. But he starts a YouTube channel, and you really get to see who he is, and he gets to control the narrative and control what gets put out and has his own platform to speak. And now he's maybe the most popular golfer on the planet.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with that. I think looking at where he's brought his image from, like you said, to where it is now, like all the kids that are on YouTube now, like love his content, right? Like they're his favorite golfer.
Might have never played golf.
Correct.
But they can like him because of who he is.
Yes. And the content that he puts out, and like him playing with kids clubs is probably one of the funniest things I've seen in a long time, right?
Like the warm-up clubs and stuff.
Like crazy. But just the things that he does and his creative mindset when it comes to that. I mean, it's just like hitting over the house, right? For a hole-in-one. Like,
dude, my wife was watching it.
Yeah.
Like, my wife was fully into that whole thing. Hates golf, thinks it's the dumbest thing in the world, but was into it.
Yeah, it's super neat. And being able to capitalize on creative minds and bringing that to the sports that we are blessed to play or get to do for a living, right? Like, that's what it's all about. It's about bringing that fan base to us and connecting not only the athlete or the individual, but the fans and the whole sport. It's just one big circle. Yeah.
I always just say, whether it's like business, whether it's your, personal relationship, just life in general, if you're adding value in a genuine way, you're going to get rewarded. And I think that when it comes to YouTube channel or social media or, like being an athlete, if you can find a way to genuinely add value to the sport, the fan, the team, and you can, do that at scale, like the larger scale you can do that, the more society is going to reward you for that, and like you can end up getting in this real positive feedback loop of, giving, adding value, and then you get it back in return. And I don't know, like some people figure it out, some people don't. There's like some people just want to take. But when you're a person that is down to invest and down to give and try and actually genuinely add value, like you get some pretty crazy results. I think you're probably proof of that.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that, right? And I think from my standpoint, within the NASCAR ranks, like nobody's ever going to beat Chase Elliott when it comes to most popular driver, right? Just because of his history, and it's a huge fan base. Like it's like Dale Jr. winning most popular driver for I don't know
like
how
100 years in a row.
Yeah, it's wild, right? No one's ever going to beat Chase until he leaves the sport.
Yeah.
So
why is that? Like, what's the appeal there from your point of view?
I think it's generational fan base. Having that name, the Elliott name. But I also think that Chase has grown his fan base as well. I don't know exactly why, I guess that would be like the most popular guy, right? But I do know that NASCAR is a Southern sport, Chase being from Dawsonville, Georgia, and Bill being one of the pioneers in the sport, right? Like there's a huge fan base behind them.
It's just like built in.
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
So like I said, you're never going to win most popular driver, right? But you can win most valuable driver, in my opinion. So that's what we're set off to do, like curating content like we have and growing our social platforms. It's about being the most valuable guy that I can be on the racetrack and off.
Yeah, that's cool, man. So did you know it was going to pop off the way that it did?
No. So
That's
I
cool.
had no idea. Like this was just an idea. So when we sat down and started talking about like our social strategy and kind of the ways and direction that we wanted to go, like it was literally just sitting here like you and I just having a conversation like, hey, let's try this.
Could work.
Like
this could work.
No one has really ever done this, right? In the sport. Like there's been YouTube channels, but not like curating behind the scenes content and pit stop videos and like traveling with my family to and from the racetrack and doing things away from the racetrack, like trying to document everything, right? And really showing that like my family, from the time that my dad started racing motocross when he was 13 years old, like that's what he first started out racing, right? And then transferred over to the car scene at like 18, 19 years old. There's photo albums from when he started back then. And I mean, they go all the way until pretty much he retired from NASCAR. And there are books from like every race, just documented photos, like photo after photo.
That's
right?
so cool.
So like I feel like documenting that stuff has kind of always been a part of our family legacy and whatnot. So being able to continue that on in a different sense, right? Digitally.
Yeah,
and
different medium.
Yeah. So now kind of showing the world like what is happening and it's a different viewpoint, right? Like when we go to race every Sunday, we're the guys underneath the helmet that are holding the steering wheel, pushing the pedals and trying to go fast, right? And turning left, as everyone says, sometimes right.
Yeah.
In the end, like there's so much more that goes into it, like the deep dive of what actually goes into it, and trying to show that has really been like my whole goal in this, and really just kind of like what happens during your everyday life, right? Like I'm a normal average human. I just get to drive race cars on every Sunday and have fun with it.
It's funny, the whole NASCAR thing. It's like, it's not a circle, but it's a circle, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, pretty simple, but draw a perfect circle. And I imagine that's what being a NASCAR driver is like, is trying to draw a perfect circle that is basically impossible to do.
Yes, I would agree with that. I think that there's a lot that goes unknown, right? Like there's been debates about like being an athlete, right? Being a NASCAR driver and being an athlete.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you're not an athlete. You just sit there and turn left.
Yeah. So like, for instance, my average heart rate from this past weekend racing at Circuit of the Americas was 162 for a 3.5 hour duration, right? My peak heart rate, or my max, was 192 during the race.
Do you remember when that was?
It was towards the end of the race.
Yeah, right.
We had a couple late race restarts, and it was everything you got to try and get through. And we had pitted for tires late in the race, so we came out, and I think we restarted like 34th or something on tires, and we got, I don't know, 16 spots or something like that on one of the final restarts. So,
and that just sends the heart rate through the roof. Like that's the most intense period for you.
Like you're driving, right? Like focus turns into heart rate, in my opinion. Plus the heat in the car, like
it's like
physically
50 degrees in there, or like Celsius. I don't know what it'd be for you.
Like 130, 140, right? So like you're hot, but you're just working the entire time. But like, in my training, right, it's all endurance based for us. Like there's no real circuit training. Like it's more longevity.
Just get your heart rate up, keep it up.
Yeah.
Stay
there. So we do some cool stuff training wise, which is really, really neat. But like I've run a couple half Ironmans in the past, and like I would equivalent that to being in a race car every Sunday. Like it's 3.5 hours at max heart rate, and it's pretty much running a marathon.
Yeah, that's
every
a marathon,
weekend, right?
really. Yeah.
So like when it comes to that, there's guys that are in race shape is what we call it, right? Like that can go out there and race. But I think Jimmy Johnson, who now owns my team, Legacy Motor Club, he was one of the first guys that really like got into the fitness side of it, and it's really changed the sport forever, right? Like you want to be optimal weight, you want to be able to perform at a really high heart rate and still be able to make split-second decisions and reactions and not get behind. But going back to the perfect circle comment, right? Like when we have, let's say, a 367 lap race at Las Vegas in a couple weeks, when we go there, you're trying to hit the perfect line every corner. Like you want to hit the perfect line as tires wear. It's, I guess, the equivalent of like ruts on a Supercross track, right? You have to hit that perfect line. And if you slip by a couple inches, that's the difference in leaving the bottom open for a guy to have air behind you on the nose to be able to squeak underneath you and eventually pass you, right? So like the track is forever changing as it rubbers up. The wind changes things a lot as well. But being able to like adapt in those situations and move around, it's constant focus for that time period. Like at the end of races, normally, like once you kind of get on the airplane to head home and you're sitting there, it's your mental side is definitely worn out for sure.
Oh man, the mental side of everything is so underlooked, I think. Like this might sound insanely silly, but I'll do days where I do 2 podcasts back to back. So that'll be 3 hours, you'll have a quick bit of food, and then another 3 hours. And by the time I leave, I'm just like complete zombie, can't focus, can't talk. Like it's just taken everything to be that concentrated and to be into something for 6 hours straight. And your brain's one of the most expensive organs in your body in terms of just energy, calories, everything that it takes. And I've done some training for like some big motocross events and things like that. And you'll go out and you'll do your 20-minute moto, your 25-minute moto. And it's, you can get your body to a certain level. Like your body adapts to what stress you put it under, right? But man, the fatigue of the mind and to just stay in it and stay engaged. And I was training for a race a couple of years ago and I was just, stay in it was like my motto that I was doing, because it was so hard to keep that high level concentration. And I mean, dude, 3 hours of heart rate being up, the heat, the intensity, the consequences, the risk, dude, it's a lot.
It is. I enjoy it. I love that aspect of it, right?
Yeah, you can see it when you talk about it too.
The mind, the body, like being able to push yourself past those limits and still be able to perform is amazing to me. Like it's just, there's so much, I feel like, undiscovered and so much potential that's there. Like when you set your mind to something, it's full force. Like I'm in it, I'm going to do it, right? And then pushing yourself past that of like, man, I don't think I can do this, and continuing on, like that's so neat to me.
Yeah.
I love that aspect. I love the training side, nutrition side, trying to keep focus for that long of a race. And there's really nothing that prepares you either for cup races, right? Like truck races are normally, so you have your 3 top series, right? Cup series, Xfinity series, truck series within NASCAR.
Yeah.
And the truck series is like hour 45, 2-hour races. The Xfinity series is anywhere from like 2 hours to 3 hours, and then the Cup series can be 3 to 4 hours, right? So like as you continue to work your way up the ladder, like the more physical it gets, the more mental it gets. Plus you're racing now 39 of the best guys in the Cup series every single weekend.
Yeah, the spear just gets pointier.
It does. Like the steps and the jumps as you continue up the ladder are just insane.
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. Oh, I can't even imagine. So before I do want to talk a lot about that because I know you're super into it. But to stay on the YouTube stuff and to finish that, like, so you didn't expect it to do what it did, but now that it has, like, how do you, like, what's your thoughts around it? And, you know, like, where do you think it can go? What's some of the, you know, I'm sure you've got a lot of ideas, because in the same way that you can work on your body and your mind and prepare, like this is a whole nother world to dive into, and there's a lot of juice to squeeze from that world.
Yeah. I think for me, now that we're at the point that we're at, I just want to continue to grow. Like I want to continue to do the things that we know that work, continue the behind the scenes content, being able to show daily life and really what goes into that. I think there's some really cool content ideas that we're working on right now that are going to come out later this year as far as some other long form stuff working on within the team side and Legacy Motor Club. But just continuing that on, like it's giving the world and subscribers, viewership, everything a different perspective on what NASCAR really is, right? And being able to kind of unleash that out there and being able to attract different generations to the sport and it is really, really big, right? Like I think one of the things that we get to do as NASCAR drivers or athletes within that space is like kids mean a lot to me, right? Like I have 2 daughters of my own and from a young age growing up, like being that kid in the garage once and being able to see your favorite driver or like being able to watch them and see what they do from the behind the scenes thing. Like it's almost giving them the same perspective that I had growing up. Right. So, it's just a complete different perspective from everything that is normally out there. But I think as we continue to grow our channel, it's continuing to try and come up with cooler ideas, more content, different things that we feel like can really show the community in the world kind of what NASCAR is all about, right? And then I think for myself, continuing to build my brand on that side of things and really showcase who I am as a person on the racetrack as well as away from the racetrack.
Yeah. What's the fan response been? Like, could you notice a massive difference as you grew through those years?
Yeah, for sure. So I think that as we continued on with this, like you continue to get comments from people at track that you wouldn't really think to get comments from, right? Like they may be wearing someone else's merch, but they'll always walk up to you and they're like, man, awesome YouTube video. Like, thank you for doing that. Or a kid will come up and be like, hey, I watched your YouTube video last week. So those responses, like, keep them coming. Like I love that stuff because it just gives you validation that you're on the right track and you're really showing a side that not a lot of people get to see.
That's sick. What's your favorite? Like, is there some favorite stuff that you've got? Bro, 647 million views.
Here, play that one.
No
if you will.
way, dude.
Yeah. So this one was from a race in Texas. We won this race. But we came in changing 4 tires. So
no,
this was the Xfinity Series. So they still have a 5 lug compared to the single lug nut on the Cup car, like the F1 cars now. But it's just showing the perspective from a tire changer, right? Like
bro's a sniper with that gun, dude.
Yeah. So what's
Can
crazy?
you believe that?
What's crazy is like all of the guys that are now really like pitting the 5 lug have been around since like the 90s. Like they're all older, right? So this is just some of the cool content from like no one can experience that point of view, right? Unless you're actually doing it. But from my point of view, like I wish NASCAR would let us run like a camera inside, like a GoPro almost, to be able to capture my view for some of these moments. Because when you're coming into the pit box, right, like there's 40 pit boxes and you're trying to find your one and then hitting your mark. So like the sign that they have in front of the car, when you stop, like you can make or break a pit stop as a driver. Like it can kill it by a second or 2 seconds, and a couple tenths on pit road is like 4 or 5 spots. You're trying to get everything you can get. So looking for that tape line for the left sides to stop on, hitting your mark perfect. Like when you lock the tires up, like even if you're short of the sign, you don't want to release the brake because the pit crew guys are watching where it's locking up and they're adjusting to where they think the car is going to stop. So like most pit crew members, like they're all either D1 athletes that didn't go pro or they're professional athletes that have retired from the NFL, MLB. We have my Jackman on my car now every weekend. He was a collegiate swimmer. I'm pretty sure he went to Olympic trials, like huge guy. But everyone is an athlete. Like one of the my front tire carrier, or I guess tire carrier now, there's only one. He played, I think, linebacker football in college. He was like semi-professional boxer, so like super quick hand speed.
Dude, that's blowing my mind.
It's insane. Like
that's insane.
But so like NASCAR is more of a team sport now than ever.
Yeah.
Right?
Because the margins are just so thin.
They're so small.
Yeah.
And you have to perform at such a high level. Like I have to execute, but everyone on pit road also has to execute.
You could do 100% of your job right, and they mess up by, like you said, tenths, half a second.
Yep.
No win.
Correct. But you win and lose as a team, right? Like there's been plenty of times where I've made mistakes on the racetrack and like
they've been perfect.
And they've been perfect, and we didn't win a race because I made a mistake on a restart, right?
Yeah,
so like it's a team sport. Like those guys, the team that travels, right? There's plenty of men and women back at the shop, but the team that travels, so there's 7 guys and girls that travel, that work on the race car specifically. And then there's 5 pit crew guys that travel every single weekend. So like let's say 15 people total between PR, communications, everything. Those 15 people are like your core family traveling every single weekend.
Yeah.
Like they are your group.
Yeah.
And you're a team. Like you pump each other up. Team meetings, like they'll sometimes get like super in depth and harsh, and but it's a judgment free zone. Like if you have something to say, like speak up and let's figure this out, because we're going to be around each other for 38 weeks, and it's a grind. It's fun.
And you need to be getting the best out of each other.
Yes.
For that whole time. You know?
Yeah, there's a way to do it for sure, and push each other to be better rather than just talk down on each other or whatever it may be. And I think the leadership role within that is super critical, not only for the driver, but crew chief and everyone involved, right? Like everyone takes responsibility for their job, and everyone has to execute their job very well.
Yeah, man, that's wild that they're all athletes and need crazy hand speed. And dude, hand-eye coordination.
Yeah.
Like, dude, didn't miss.
Yeah. So like that was probably like a 12 or 13 second pit stop, if I had to guess. So now with the single lugs on the cup cars every weekend, like they're down to 880s, 870s. I think there may have been like an 830 last year. Don't hold me to that number, but like that's hauling the mail, right? And that's only 5 guys. Like when you compare it to an F1 pit stop, right? They're like 2.8 seconds, 3-second pit stops.
Yeah.
But it seems like they have 20
Unless
people
you're Ferrari.
Well, yeah. But there's like 20 people there, right?
Yeah.
That are continuously working. That's with 5 guys doing that. Like choreography, speed, all of it. Like the way that they practice, I think 3 or 4 times a week. In the gym training, just like they're a professional athlete. Like that's what they are. That
Have you
is
got
their
any
job.
videos of those guys doing the practice and the training and stuff like that?
Yeah. We haven't
find
released
one.
any of those.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because
we
that's
have
cool.
some of
Like
it.
even just the way that they'd
Actually,
be doing
if
weights
you go
and stuff.
down, I don't think we have any of the training side of it, but I think there's a
Some practice
overhead
stuff.
view. Yeah.
Yeah, NASCAR's still very raw. I went to a couple races last year. I went to Indy. Or maybe it was 23.
Here, click on the
the
one
overhead.
right, the overhead down
And
left.
left,
Yeah,
yeah.
right there. So this is like actual pit stop practice. So this is how we practice.
So you're in the car doing the driving as well?
Yep. So I was driving this day, and if the drivers aren't there, they have someone that drives it.
Yeah.
But I think we did like 6 stops, and then it's weekend specific, right? So they'll take this pit stop car and they'll adjust wheel well openings and like how far the droop is once it jacks up tire wise.
Based on the track setting.
Based on where we're going, so that they can actually like get reps with how tight it is, right? Like,
Bro.
like road course racing last week is super tight. So like pulling the wheel and not getting it caught is huge, right? Like it's worth seconds when it comes to that. So being able to actually get them reps and practice through that is really unique.
It's just sick seeing someone that likes their job this much too, dude. Like, you really like your
I
job.
love
It's
it.
cool.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't really feel like a job, right?
Yeah,
like,
true.
Like when we're here, like it's what I love to do. It's been my life. Like I've always raced, just didn't know if it was 2 wheels, 4 wheels, what it was going to be, but racing was always top of the line.
Yeah. No, that's awesome, man. So what's the team like in terms of the whole media side of the business? Like, because I'm sure, you know, you've got like the racing team and then that's a team. But for you to do what you're doing here, like this is its own kind of team as well, right?
It is, for sure. Within the team, you have the competition side and then you have the business side. And it's very unique, right? The business side wants to do everything they can to sell and be able to push and create unique content and different things of that sort. But then the competition side wants to definitely keep things hush hush and not show too much, and choreography and different things that they're working on and car wise. So it's a fine balance. It's tough, but it's a fine balance. I like both sides of it. From a young age, I had to learn how to sell sponsorship and different things of that sort. Like if I wanted to race, that was one of the things that I had to do. And a quick little story on that. I was 12 years old. I just got out of motocross at the time and went back 4-wheel racing. And the sponsor, sadly, he passed away a couple of years ago. But he was my first ever sponsor. Like I called him up and we talked. I had to put a whole sponsorship proposal together, sent it to him. He went through it. I don't know what grade I was in, 6th or 7th at the time, I think. And I literally laid everything out for him. And he goes, "You got a deal." And then he called me like 2 seconds later and he goes, "Hey, part of this deal is your school." He's like, "You have to maintain A's and B's in school. If you get anything less than a B, all the funding stops and you can't race until you get your grades back up." And I didn't really understand it at the time, right? Like understanding his mindset and whatnot. And before he passed away, he called me and he's like, "Hey, do you know why I sponsored you?" I'm like, "No." Like I was a young kid asking for you to sponsor me so I could go race. And he's like, "There's so many kids out there that have dreams, and you told me all about your dreams and what you wanted to do and how you wanted to achieve it and what it was going to take." He goes, "So many kids, when they have a dream, they don't jump into that. They don't chase after it, right? Like they either think it's impossible or they have big dreams and aspirations, but they don't go after it." He's like, "You were so deeply involved and invested in what you wanted to do with your life and how you wanted to achieve that like I couldn't say no." But the reason that I didn't say no is because I didn't want you to get mixed up in the wrong crowds and go down the wrong path. Like I wanted you to focus on racing and focus on school. I knew if you did those two things, you would be super successful in the end. And I was like, man, like, thank you. Like that hit hard for me. Just growing up and kind of seeing that he was watching out for me at such an early age, but he also like pushed me without really pushing me, right? From a voice of like, "Hey, go chase this. Like you got this, go do everything that you can do to get yourself to the point where you can do this for a living one day."
That is super cool, man. Hey, that's such I guess, a bit of luck in life to have somebody that was that cool in your corner, believed in you, and actually like literally put their money where their mouth was, you know, but also just designed things in a way where it kind of like incentivized the right behavior from you.
Yes, for sure. And I got all A's and B's, I can tell you that. I didn't miss a race. Yeah.
What was his company?
He owned a construction company out of Florida. It was called DAB Constructors. He sold it off a few years ago before he passed away, but they did all of the major paving for like I-4 in Florida and all the turnpikes and a lot of government work. He owned a couple like rock quarries and plants and different things of that sort. So he was heavily invested in that. But his name was Bill Bachschmidt. Man, I owe so much to him for what he did for me at such an early age and continuing to push me. Like without him, I would not be where I'm at right now. Like without him giving me that chance and really kind of honing in and pushing me to be better, like I probably wouldn't be here sitting here talking to you right now. It's
That's
cool.
wild. Did he get to many NASCAR races?
He did.
That must have been very cool for him.
It was. There's 2 or 3 guys like him that have helped me along my career, that have pushed me to be better in that way. But he used to come to Daytona every single year. He had the same motorhome spot on Lake Lloyd in the infield. He would come and hang out, and we had such a great time together. And his family would come. And then he came to some late model races when I was growing up, Allison Legacy car races. Just kind of everything that I raced, he was involved in. But I think going back to that story for a second, the thought that just popped into my head was he never asked my parents if he could do that deal with me, right, about the A's and B's in school. And then after we did it, he ended up calling my dad and was like, hey, I made this deal. Like, is that okay? And it's like, heck yeah, thank you for doing that. So he was definitely a guy that knew what he wanted to do, and knew how to push to be better.
That's awesome, man. That's
Yeah.
just such a blessing in life to be able to have somebody like that. I mean, you don't get to have the size of company that he did and do the kind of work that he did without having an idea, you know, like you've got to kind of be a high level operator, and to be a young kid that gets to be influenced by someone like that, that's pretty special.
Yeah, it was super special. Super, super special. He, like I said, I owe him a lot. My career is a lot to do with him.
So what prompted that? Like, so your dad made you go out and chase sponsorship?
Yeah, so there's a picture of me floating around on the interweb somewhere. My dad was racing, didn't have a sponsor for Daytona, and they made me wear a T-shirt at the time that said "Help, help! My dad needs a sponsor."
No way.
And this guy was walking.
Try to find that.
Yeah, this guy was walking down the grid in Daytona at the Daytona 500 race, and said, "Hey, can you point me to who your dad is?" And he walked over and he goes, "Hey, I'm in this spot on Lake Lloyd. Like, why don't you come over and we can chat later?" And that's how it all prompted. He sponsored my dad a couple times at Daytona. And then I created that relationship with him and continued on from there. Type in John Hunter Nemechek sponsor shirt, or help sponsor shirt.
That is crazy, dude. Like, that's some Talladega Nights shit.
Yeah. Scroll down. Right there.
No way, bro.
Yeah. What year was that?
No way, dude.
Yeah, I don't know what year that was, but it was
With the OGO hat on too. So
OGO
you're
hat.
obviously like a Nitro Circus kid at that point.
I was all action sports at that point.
That's so crazy. So what did the guy's business, like, what did he do?
He worked on major interchanges and paving company and rock quarries, kind of cement plants.
Oh,
all
so
of
what was
stuff.
that?
It was the same guy.
No.
Yeah. So that's what prompted it, right?
No way.
Yeah. So that's what prompted this whole discussion. So we got to know him, and then later that
And
year
then you
is when I called him.
You're like, hey, I got a new deal for you.
Yeah.
The deal obviously went well, but I've got another driver. The driver's me.
Yeah. So that was what we did. And then I had 2 other guys kind of like him. One owned, it's called AM/FM Energy. So like wood pellet stoves and grills. He was one of the first ones to patent that.
No way.
Yeah, back in the early 2000s.
What a don.
And he passed away not long after that either. But he sponsored me through late models and some into the truck series. And then there was another guy in the oil field business. He ended up getting liver cancer diagnosed, and they told him that he had a few months to live. And his dream was to be an owner in NASCAR. And I'll tie this back to another story here in a little bit, but he wanted to be an owner, and he ended up teaming up with my dad. I was driving for our family team at the time, Motorsports, and it was kind of a crazy whirlwind. They said he had 4 months to live. He got on an experimental drug and ended up living like 3 years longer than what he was supposed to. But he kind of kicked off my truck career in NASCAR when I was 16 years old and put a lot of money behind it and really pushed us to continue on and help try and get me to where he felt like I needed to be. But because of his dream and my dream, it all worked out. So I've had some really good help behind me. There's, I would say, one other guy from a young age, a guy named Shannon Smith. He owned a company called Fire Alarm Services, which they were based out of Denver, Colorado. He sponsored me, and we went Xfinity racing in 2018, I think. He had sponsored me in the Truck Series a couple of years before that. The reason that he sponsored us was he was going to Phoenix, and I'm pretty sure that his truck was breaking down. He was trying to merge onto the freeway, and our hauler driver that was driving our equipment to Phoenix slowed down and let him in. And a sponsorship relationship started from that. Now that company is now bought out, and a guy named Bart, who owns Pye Barker Fire and Safety, is the primary sponsor on my Cup car this year. They have 14 races this year, and it's crazy how the world works, right?
No, it's crazy how being a good person works.
That's
literally like all of this that you're describing is like, oh yeah, I was just like a good dude, and then this good thing happened to me, and then my truck driver was a good dude, and then this good. That's why it pays to be a good person.
Yeah, I agree. Good energy brings good energy.
100%.
That is for sure. So tying back to that story, right? A little bit, I guess, about my career and whatnot. Like, I started my career with Toyota in the NASCAR ranks. I think it was 2013, 2014, something like that. Actually, 2013. And started my career with Toyota. Well, when our business partner came in, who was in the oil field business, they ended up making a business move to go with Chevrolet. So it kind of took me out of the Toyota ranks and whatnot. And then I was with Chevy for 6 years, through 2019. Then I went Cup racing in 2020 for Ford with Front Row Motorsports. COVID happened, and I got a call at the end of 2020. I was at a sponsor event in Texas, a company called Romco Equipment Company. We were doing a demo day with a bunch of their customers and whatnot, and on excavators. And I had grown up on machines, right? We
building tracks.
We built our own or not supercross, but motocross track in our front yard where I used to ride every day and whatnot. So we were racing some of the best operators and filling dump trucks full of stone and dirt and whatnot. And in the middle of that, I got a call from one of the executives at Toyota TRD, now Toyota Gazoo Racing. But they had tried to get me to come back at the end of 2019 to run in the Truck Series for 2020. And I said that I had to go Cup racing. Like, this is what I felt like I needed to do. This was the career path that I was on. And that phone call made me realize a lot. That the question was, do you want to come drive at Kyle Busch Motorsports in the Truck Series with us? And we can chat about your future and kind of figure out where this needs to go. 2020 was a rough year for me in the Cup Series. We had some really good runs. We had some really not so great runs. And mentally at that time, I was not good. Like, I had won in everything I'd ever been in. And then you hop in a Cup car and you're running 25th or 30th every week. And
the
it's like,
littlest fish in the biggest pond.
Yeah. And it's like, man, like, this sucks. Like, how do we get better? Like, there's one week when we came back from COVID, the first race back, I went and finished 8th, like, really solid. We went back to the same racetrack 4 days later, and I ran 32nd. It's like, how does that happen? Right? Like what makes us run this way? And so from that instance on, during COVID, I was flying with Kyle Busch back and forth from the races, and he was the one who owned KBM, Kyle Busch Motorsports. He had been with Toyota forever, and we had some really deep conversations on the plane.
You just soul searching.
Yeah. So Kyle actually drove for my dad when I was like 4 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, for a few races when he was a Hendrick development guy in the now Xfinity series and whatnot. So I've always kind of had a relationship with him, but the conversations that we had were, what do you want to do with your life? Like, where do you want your career to go? Like, how do you see yourself ending your career? Like, do you want to be in this situation where you're running 30th every week and you're stagnant? Like, you can't really go to another team. No one's really interested in it. Like, what is there? Like, no, like I don't want this to come across the wrong way, but I don't care if I'm a Cup Series driver or not, right? Like, I want to be able to put myself in a situation to compete at the highest level that I possibly can, and being able to have fun, winning races, enjoying that moment, enjoying the people that I'm around, enjoying life, right? Like, that really set in with me. And when I got that phone call from the Toyota exec, I was like, yes, let's do it. Like, I'm pretty sure I immediately said yes without talking to my wife, without talking to anyone around me. Like, let's do it. And then,
and why was that? Like, what made it that easy of a decision?
So I wanted to win races,
Yeah.
and it was a chance for me to revamp my career.
No matter where you were,
it was a chance for me to step back. So after I said yes, right, like, let's definitely figure this out and let's get something done. Then I went home and I had a long conversation with my wife, Taylor, about it, and like started like questioning things, right? Like, afterwards, it's like, man, did I really just say yes to this? Like, what am I doing? Like,
and so what did it mean, like saying yes to that? What did that mean? It meant that you were going to have to go back to the
truck series.
The truck series,
Yeah.
and take like essentially a step back in your career.
Yeah, so I was going to take 2 steps back, right? Is how the media portrayed it and how I was thinking at the time,
Yeah.
right? So getting home and talking to Taylor about it, it's like, what do you think I should do? Like, I'm kind of have reservations towards this, but it also is intriguing that I know that I can go win races, right? From my standpoint, like, I felt like I had enough talent in me and determination and enough work ethic that I could go and win races at this level. But it was also one of the best truck teams that I was hopping into. They had proven to win with every driver that they had in the truck series. So me taking that step back, it's like, if I don't go win, like, my career is over. Like, where do I go from here?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, running 25th in the Cup Series every week, sure, like, you can say that you're a Cup Series guy, but you take a risk on yourself. Like, one, that's really big career moment, right? And defining moment of like, hey, do I end up still in the truck series? Can I move up? Can I win races? Or is my career over and what am I going to do now, right? And after having those conversations, like, it was pretty clear that Taylor was like, hey, go do this. Like, I got you. I'm your support system. Like, I'm here to help push you through this, and whatever you need, we're going to do this together. So we ended up doing it. We went out. The second race of the year was at Las Vegas. We ran really good at Daytona, didn't win. And Kyle was actually running some races that year, and he's 200 plus wins in NASCAR.
Yeah, he's pretty good, eh?
Yeah, winning his truck series driver, right? And we go out and we beat him in the second race of the year. And I'm like, boom, like, validation, right?
Yeah.
Like, my mindset was like, man, I can really do this. Like, I believe in myself. Like, I can push myself and we can win a lot of races. I think we won 5 races that year. Like, did really, really well. Stayed for a second year. I don't want to say sophomore slump. Like, we won a couple races. We were still a championship contender, but it wasn't like the first year. And then not knowing where my career path was going to go, right? Like, was I going to stay running trucks for Toyota? Was I going to have the opportunity to move up to the Xfinity Series? And we moved up to the Xfinity Series with Joe Gibbs Racing in 2023. We went out, we won 7 races, top championship contender. And winning a championship hasn't worked out for me yet. I don't know why that is. Obviously, there's a reason behind it. I always
It's
think that
very
there's a
hard
reason.
to win.
They are, especially with the new playoff format, right? When it comes
It's pretty
down,
ruthless, eh?
when it comes down to one race, like you can have a perfect season, and it gets down to one race at Phoenix for the championship race, and it's you and 3 guys that are racing for the championship. And if there's one mistake or one thing that goes wrong,
Bit of bad luck.
it's over, right? Like your whole season. At this point, making the championship 4 is almost like winning a championship because it's so hard to get to be those 4 guys competing for the championship. So yeah, it's tough. It's difficult. And then I got the call at the end of 23 from Jimmy Johnson and Legacy Motor Club as they were transitioning from Chevrolet to Toyota.
And you're like, perfect.
And it opened 2 cup seats on the Toyota side of things. So I could stay in the Toyota TRD family. And it's like, what do you think about this? Like, let's do it. And I haven't found anything that Jimmy sucks at yet, except for maybe free throws with Shaq. I think that's about it. But as a driver, as a competitor, as a friend, like he's amazing at everything that he does. And there's no reason from an ownership standpoint, like he's going to push this deal to be the best that it can be. And kind of continuing on from that, I took that deal and we went cup racing last year. So it kind of felt like my rookie season again, I would say, getting my feet wet back in the cup series and then back again. So 2 years in a row. And I don't know where my career would have been if I wouldn't have had that call from Toyota and TRD to bring me back to the truck series and kind of let me revamp my career. Like I owe a lot to them, but I guess the full circle moment here is like starting my career with Toyota, kind of venturing off, and then them bringing me back was a pretty defining moment, and it's been an amazing journey for sure.
And also having the humility to go back, that's kind of a big thing in all of this as well. Not only that, then having the support from your wife to do that, and I mean, I say it all the time on here, like I'm down to like just be the man and like carry the family for the the whole time as much as I can, but like I feel like I need my wife for the 1% of times where I'm just down and out, and then she's the one that will pick me back up, give me the belief to keep going. And it's like the 1% of times where it's like that is worth the 99% where you feel fine and you're able to carry the family, so to speak. And it's like pretty cool. It sounds like you kind of had one of those moments.
Yeah, for sure. I don't, without her in that moment, I guess pushing me in a sense to do what I felt like I could do and taking that gamble on myself, I don't know if I would have done it, to be completely honest with you.
Makes sense, dude. Like that's a big call. You're already in the Cup Series. Like that's where you've spent your whole life wanting to get to, and then you're going to go down 3 ranks, know the media scrutiny that you're going to have to deal with, the internal doubt, the what ifs, the if this doesn't pan out, my career's over. Like it's a huge jump, dude.
Yeah, it was. But man, it's turned out really good. I'm proud of everything that we've been able to accomplish since then, and winning a ton of races through those 4 years so far of being back in the Toyota family and taking that risk and trying to revamp. I also feel like it made me mature a lot. It made me grow up really fast.
Well, you were super young too. I mean, you would have been what, 24 or 23 in the Cup Series?
22 turning 23. Yeah,
Super young,
I was
dude.
young.
Yeah.
And
There's a massive amount of growing that happens from a 22-year-old man to a 27-year-old man. Like even just your fucking brain, like your actual brain develops in that time. You know?
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think being able to live through those scenarios and like learn through that, like there was a lot of learning.
Crazy.
It was. But what's cool, I guess, another note about that story is my uncle was, I guess he's the winningest crew chief in Truck Series history. He was a car chief on Denny Hamlin's car at Joe Gibbs Racing in 2020 and the few years prior to that. He actually stepped down from his role in the Cup Series of being a car chief on that car and came back to crew chief me in the Truck Series for 2 years.
What a legend.
Yeah. So the other really neat connection is my uncle John, who I was named after, gave him kind of his first opportunity in NASCAR as well. So like there's a whole family tie there, right? Like he's not only my uncle, but he my crew chief is my uncle, but he's like super tight with myself, and he's been a huge supporter of mine through the years. And for him to step down and take a gamble on me as well, and really take a gamble on himself, right? Like, can he still do this? Like, he was 6 years removed crew chiefing, and kind of brought a whole nother world to it for me and a different perspective, and taught me a lot. But just the family tie there with him being really close with my Uncle John, they were roommates and whatnot, and then being able to step down and be there for me was absolutely amazing.
That's awesome. And did he tick over to be the most winning when he was with you?
No, he already
was that guy.
We just added to his total,
Just
which
got
was
him
amazing.
further out in front.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I don't know the exact number, but I think it's in the 60s or 70s, I believe, for how many races he's won in the Truck Series. So he's accomplished for sure.
What's
great.
the responsibilities of a crew chief?
A lot.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say they're like the team manager, but so like I would say the team manager kind of oversees, like, we had 3 truck teams at KBM, right? So I drove the 4 truck. There was another guy in the 18 truck, and then they had the 51 truck. There was like a split all-star truck. So Kyle would drive that some, and then they had some younger kids hopping in it as well that were Toyota development drivers. So the crew chief was like for my 4 truck, right? So
yeah, so he's like the team manager of that.
The
team within the team.
Yep. So like when the engineers come up with setup ideas or whatnot, he would validate them and say, hey, this is the direction that we're going to go. Or the spec of like where he wanted the truck body built going to the racetrack, or what was underneath the truck, shocks, springs, aero packages that we would run. Like he was the final say on all of that, right? As well as managing all the team members underneath him. So like the car chief is technically underneath the crew chief, right? So the car chief is more all car aligned. So whatever the crew chief sends to the car chief then makes sure that it's in the car properly the way that the crew chief wants it.
Yeah.
And then you have your mechanics, and then you have your engineers, and then your pit crew is separate from that. So he was managing all of those people, making sure that everyone that was in those places were the right people to be in places, as well as making sure that the development on the truck side was continuing to go strong, making sure that the aero department was going strong. So like your responsibility is dealing with all of the crew, dealing with me as the driver, and like as far as adjustments and changes, calling the race on the pit box during the race, talking to me as well as the spotter, and like the 3 most important communication aspects are driver, crew chief, and spotter every single weekend on the racetrack. So being able to have an uncle and a family member, crew chief you, when you come back, and having that language, and we had to learn the dynamic a little bit, but that responsibility is huge. Like, you're managing a lot.
Damn, that's crazy, eh? Then the whole spotter thing as well is very unique to you guys in the motorsport. I mean, I guess it's unique in the fact that it's like one guy in a certain position, and it's like a kind of a triangle in a sense. Like you've got you going around, and then you've got the crew chief here, and then the spotter in like a different vantage point. Like, how important is that role in the team?
There are eyes in the sky, right? So like, let's say Daytona a few weeks ago, right? You're literally running inches off of each other's bumpers, going 205 mile an hour or whatever it is.
So gnarly.
Pushing each other, trying to understand when runs are coming, when you're going to block lanes. But you think about it, Daytona's a 2.5 mile racetrack, right? So they're above the start finish line at the highest vantage point, on top of the suites and on top of race control and everything else. So pretty much the whole time they're looking through their binoculars, looking at gaps and calling that out, right? But for me, I have to trust that guy on the roof. Like, I'm trusting him with everything that's going on around me, giving me the right information, and pushing me also to make the right moves, and call strategy and everything else from the crew chief. So like the way that we have it set up is the crew chief talks primarily on a second channel to the spotter, and then the spotter relays that information to me.
Yeah.
So I don't hear everything, and you're kind of concentrating and whatnot. But the spotter role is one of the most important roles when it comes to that. Like, they can see how the car is handling just from a visual standpoint and give the crew chief a heads up. But for me as a driver, like, I'm relying on them for everything. Like, Daytona is, you don't know what's going to happen, right? Like, the big one always happens. So it's up to them to help guide you through it. Yes, I'm the one holding the steering wheel and ultimately making the final decisions, but their input is heavily weighted.
So what would be like 3 of the top calls that you got at the 500 this year? Like, in terms of information from him, that's just like an absolute game changer.
So I bailed at one point in the pack. We ended up going to the back. We were kind of mid-pack, and stuff started getting squirrely. Guys started pushing, and you could tell that the energy was ramping up.
So you can like feel that in the pack.
Yeah, like
You're like, these guys are getting weird.
Yeah, like you can see guys like starting to hit each other wrong, and pushes kind of that are getting guys squirrely and out of shape, and you kind of know when that's happening, and sometimes it's earlier than what you want, right? So at that point, like, we bailed. Like, we went to the back and we rode, and we missed a wreck because of it, right?
No way.
Which turned out really good.
So what's the call from the spotter? He like literally says to you, hey, it's getting weird out there.
Yeah, like, hey, just watch them here. Like, they're starting to push really hard up front. Or, hey, like, top lane is stacking really hard every time they get into 3. Just information like that, right? Like continuing to give me information for me to process to make my judgment calls on what is happening. So that one, and then I would say the second one is like calling runs, right? So Daytona is really hard to call runs at night. And when I talk about a run, right, like the bottom lane, let's say the bottom lane is formed and everyone is in line really close to each other. It's going really big. As the lanes kind of start to grow elsewhere, more cars get dominant, how tight they are gap wise, like that creates energy, right? So like you could be in the bottom lane and the top lane's coming. Like, when do you pull out to jump in front of that top lane and get pushed? Or like, what call are you making to get into the middle lane if they're 3 wide, right? So that information of like quarter front, quarter back, top lanes coming, 22-47 attached outside, they're 6 back. Now they're 4 back. Like at times he'll be like up. Like, so you get up, get up the racetrack. Like you're trusting him as that judgment call that if you hop up there, that lane's going to go forward, right? Like you want to continue to inch your way forward. Like, I guess the thing is like, if you had somebody standing on an overpass on the major freeway here, right? LA traffic sucks. But if you're gridlocked and you want to continue to make moves from lane to lane and keep jumping cars, and let's say there's 40 cars in front of you, how do you get from 40th up to the front to have a shot to win it, right? And if you have somebody on an overpass looking at how the traffic is staggered, and they're like, okay, you need to get into the bottom lane here, right? Like there's going to be a gap, or there's going to be a gap in the middle. Like, let's keep creeping our way up there and calling those runs to get yourself in a better position.
Yeah.
Or
like knowing that the lane is open, but you don't know where somebody is in respective to you, and if you've got time to pull out. So he's like, go, or up. You just turn the wheel. You're like, no one's behind me. If I just keep doing my thing and go there, I'll be fine.
Yep.
But you would never be able to like look in mirrors to know if you actually could.
Yeah. So we do have a rear view camera in our cars now. So like you can see the picture behind you, but you don't know how fast that run is coming, right? Or if it's worth blocking, or if there's enough cars up there to have enough energy to propel you to the front, right?
Because they do. So I think don't claim to be a NASCAR expert, so go with me. But there is a certain amount of energy and momentum that's created by all of those cars pushing together, right?
Yes. Yeah. So 2 cars are faster than 1, right? 6 cars are faster than 2.
16 are
Or they're
real fast.
Yeah, you're going, right?
Yeah.
So like you think about it, like the spoiler, the closer you are to the car in front of you, the air off the spoiler is not on
Just
the
misses you
is not on
completely.
the
Yeah.
car behind him, right? So
Yeah.
like you have that wind effect to where the car essentially in second doesn't have any drag on it. So like you can get to the guy's bumper and push, and you're locked together at times, right? So being able to understand when a run is too big from the spotter to pull out, like we call them bad blocks, right? Like if you pull out too late, most of the time you're going to end up getting wrecked because they have so much energy and they're getting pushed from behind. Like they can't slow down. You know what I mean? Like you're going 200 mile an hour.
Yeah.
And if you're going 197 and they hit you at 205, like that's a pretty big speed difference, right? Sometimes you can hang on to it. Most of the time not, and that's where the big one comes from. But understanding that, the information part of it from the spotter is like the most critical part, right?
Dude, there's
like,
a lot on their shoulders.
yeah, like they're literally like Picasso on the spotter stand describing what the painting is around you and how it's continuing to change. So like from our move standpoint, right? We started stage 3, we pitted late on fuel. I want to say we started stage 3 in like 32nd, something like that. And with 8 laps to go, we were running 3rd. So like we continued to work our way up through there by picking the right lanes.
And that's just great calls.
And getting through wrecks and things of that sort. So great calls, great track position at that point, right? Great people around you. We had some Toyota teammates that were lined up with us, pushing us really hard. We dodged a couple wrecks as well, which was nice. And we got through them and then came home 5th. So like the way that that race plays out, like, there's a lot of luck involved, but you also have to make the right moves and try and put yourself in the right place.
Yeah, yeah. Can you pull up the Daytona 500 highlights? It'd be cool to just like see what you're seeing, or you know what I mean? Like just get your perspective on it. Yeah, 2025. Damn, we're in 2025. I almost said 2023, dude.
Dang. Where have you been the last 2 years?
Just grinding, bro. Just grinding, locked in. Oh, that's right. Trump was out today.
So 2 of my 3 Daytona 500 starts, Trump has been there.
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. The big man.
Yeah.
Dude,
So-
it's packed, eh?
Oh, it was
I
packed.
need to go one year.
Come on. We'll have you out next year.
Yeah.
Come with us.
When is it normal? It's normally
It's
like
the
February,
second week of
right?
February.
Yeah. So where are you at the start? What's it feel like at the start of the Daytona
we're
500?
we're the green car right there behind the 12.
Yep.
So I think we started 16th or something like that. 16th or 18th.
Is it ascend from the jump? Go full screen drift. Is it ascend from the jump, or it's like pretty chill? Like
So-
people kind of get into it.
It was kind of ascend. So I ended up hopping to the 3rd lane, and I think we were running 6th. We had a rain delay. So there was rain
Standard,
coming.
yeah.
So we knew that it was going to like kind of get intense towards that. So when we first started out, it was like, okay, the 3rd lane is rolling. There's not many people up there. So we hopped up there and gained, 4 or 5 rows within a couple laps. Normally it's kind of tame. So the way that the 500 works now, which kind of sucks, is a lot of it is fuel saving. Like trying to hit your fuel number to have enough to have a shorter pit stop at the end for better track position.
Yeah.
But at times, like you are full send. So yeah, you're running 200 mile an hour, 3x3 is what we call it, right? So they're 3 wide, like 12 rows deep, and you're racing the crap out of each other, pushing each other. It's like the 24 is attached to the 8 right here, right?
Yeah.
So they're going to get a big run down into turn 3.
Dude, and that bank is so steep. Like,
It
I
is.
wish people that don't have respect, people that don't have respect for NASCAR need to just go and stand on that bank, because
Yeah.
it is wild, bro.
So like I don't feel it, right? Like you don't really like
In the car?
feel that much banking, right? Like it doesn't feel as steep as it is in the car just because you're going so fast.
But
right?
when you walk it, you know that.
Oh, it's steep. It's hard to walk up it.
Yeah, legit.
Yeah. So that was early on,
Yeah.
wreck wise. But it's everyone just kind of continues to pile in, and the coolest thing I feel like about Daytona is you're running so close together. Yeah, so right here, we were in the middle of this wreck, actually, and didn't hardly get any damage, thank goodness.
Go back a couple clips. So how did this start? Could you see it? Oh, there we go.
So the 91 got turned, and we were right in the middle of it, and we got hit, I think, in the left side door and then the right side door, and luckily it was just a scuff mark. Yeah, so they stacked right on the top.
Yep.
And then the 91 got turned right there, and we're the green car right in the middle.
Yeah.
So we get hit right there.
Oh, you just got through that.
So luckily it didn't get any of the wheels, right?
Yeah.
From a suspension type of damage. But yeah, so these cars, when you're getting pushed, like it's squirrely. Like you're holding on for dear life. Yeah. Just getting shoved from behind. So like the spotter right here, right? Like there's a third lane coming, and it was a little late as far as like making that move and run wise to have a shot to win it, which he ended up picking up a couple spots. But the spotter is relaying that information. Like when a guy wants to jump up top and whatnot, how does that work out? What cars are formed behind you? I wish we had spotter audio that I could play for you, because like they literally don't unkey the button. Like they are talking nonstop to you.
It's like very,
it's very detail oriented. So like Bubba is leading here, right? And like the spotter would be talking about how the 9 and the 12 are even. The bottom has a run, and then where the energy is going to come. So like right there, he blocked the top, right?
Yeah.
So trying to figure out where that is and how to put yourself in those spots.
It's wild what you said about it becoming like a fuel saving thing. Ricky Stenhouse did the pod last week.
Yep.
And he was saying when he won, he didn't even have enough fuel for a burnout.
Yeah.
Just completely empty. And the team was like, dude, we're probably at the end of the race. They're like, dude, we had no idea that you were actually going to be able to finish this race.
It's wild, isn't it?
Oh, imagine.
So like we try to save fuel based on where our throttle position is, but you don't know how much you're saving.
Yeah.
Like you have no clue. Like
there's nothing on the dash to tell you.
We don't have a speedometer. We don't have any of that, right? Like we have a fuel pressure gauge that tells us how much pressure is going through the fuel filter, and then we have our RPM and then oil temp, water temp, and that's really about it. Like you have volts and whatnot, but as far as like actual information, we have nothing.
Hey, you're just going blind.
Yeah.
You just send it until the wheels fall off.
Just don't send it too hard.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
So this is kind of getting close to the end.
Yeah, so this is 34 to go, right? So trying to make the right moves. Like we're in the middle right here, right? So
you're in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, so we're about to lead this lane. But 34 to go, it started ramping up. And when you get down to the end of these races, like you have to have track position. Because like this situation, right? Like track position, like Ricky ended up getting spun right here. But like we were far enough ahead that you weren't in it. You know what I mean? Like you're in a decent spot. Everyone else behind you ended up like getting wadded up.
And do you just know for sure with 30 something laps to go that there's going to be wrecks?
Oh yeah,
like you sure. It's a.
So like there was a big conflict, right, with this race at the end of it with NASCAR not throwing a caution. So on the last lap, we wrecked getting into turn 3, right? And they let us race back to see who was going to win the Daytona 500, right? So there was a moment where it was like, well, should we have raced back, or should the caution have been thrown with the leaders wrecking, right, in that instance? So with that, like it's hard to know where you're at, what's going to happen. But if we had to end the race under green, right? Like if they would have thrown the caution there and then we would have raced back under green, if no matter how many restarts we would have had,
that was going to be wrecks.
We were all going to wreck at some point. Like it was going to be like a game of survival. Like the last one standing was going to win the race, right? That's just how it goes. But right here with 7 to go, right? Like everyone is pushing so hard. Like the lines are so tight. Like this is third car back, I think. Yeah. So like,
and then you don't have track position.
Yep. Yeah, so that was a really big wreck.
Yeah,
so,
that is a big wreck.
So the leader ended up getting turned right there. And like there's so many times that happens. Like for us, everyone kind of guesses like, is the front the safest place to be? Is the back the safest place to be? Is the middle the safest place to be? Like there is real no safe place. Like you're kind of just racing and hoping that it works out, that you're in the right spot and that you have the right people around you. Like right here, like he's pushing right and he gets a little off center and it just turns the car just a little bit and then you're along for the ride.
Yeah, and I mean, you were 2 rows from being in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Damn, dude. How do you win one of these?
Putting yourself in the right spot and a little bit of luck.
A whole lot of luck.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I've learned that.
Yeah,
I
same.
live by that. Man, that's wild. He got like airborne too.
Yeah. So I think there's one more restart here after this. Yeah.
Oh,
right
there you
here.
go.
So they didn't throw a caution for this. So this was just a single car spin. And then we all wrecked getting into turn 3 right here. Luckily, we were able to make it through. But the leaders are pushing each other right here, the top 2. And they're all trying to get the spot, right? 41 jumps to the outside. He comes down a little bit, and then they all kind of get turned. But, like, it's close. Like, you don't really know what's going to happen there. Yeah.
Dude, so, and you're, what, P?
We came home P5 here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. Dude, that's just chaos. Absolute chaos.
It's controlled chaos.
Yeah. It's skill. There's a lot of dudes with a lot of skill being real chaotic. What's there's got to be, I mean, I don't know if like fear is the right word, but just, man, the anxiety of just like head forward, sending it, and just people touching your car from both sides, every angle, and it's just pedal to the metal still, trying to stay committed to the line. Like, that's a lot going on.
Yeah, it is. I think the anxiety part of it, like, at that point, we don't think about any of that, right? Like, afterwards, it's like, man, that was wild. Like,
that's pretty crazy,
we just did that?
Yeah.
Dang, we put ourselves in that position.
Yeah.
But to be honest, like when you're riding 3x3 like that, like everyone's kind of going the same speed, it doesn't feel that fast, to be completely honest with you. Like 2.5 mile racetrack, running 200 mile an hour, like it's kind of just cruising, right? Like you're just out for your Sunday drive. But when stuff starts happening around you and you're changing lanes and blocking, getting pushed, and cars start spinning, and it's like, oh shit, like this is wild.
We're
like,
going quick.
We are going really fast.
Yeah.
When you're the guy that's getting spun or you're spinning or you're getting involved in a wreck, it's like, oh, this is going to hurt. Like grab onto your belts and hope that it doesn't hurt too bad.
In 2022, Eli Tomac made the switch to Yamaha and found instant success on their class-leading YZ450F. Eli Tomac had 3 reasons for making the switch. He wanted power, and the Yamaha has the strongest and most tunable motor in the class. He wanted KYB suspension, and the YZ450F comes stock with his preferred KYB system. And finally, he wanted a cable clutch. Yamaha took the championship-winning YZ450F and made it even better. More powerful, lighter, slimmer, with enhanced overall stability and more agility than ever before. The 2025 YZ450F is available now in both Yamaha Blue, or to really look like Eli Tomac, it's also available in the Monster Energy Edition. The pinnacle of off-road 4-stroke performance wrapped in iconic Yamaha racing livery. Head to YamahaMotorsports.com or into your local dealer now. What's the most painful wreck you've had, do you think?
Ooh, I blew Indy last year. We had a really good car. We led part of the race. On a late race restart, I got clipped in the left rear getting into turn 1. And NASCAR has a barrier. It's called safer barriers. So it's like a 2-wall system, an aluminum wall or a steel wall. And then it has foam, triangle foam pieces in between that and a concrete wall, so it absorbs the energy on impact, right? Well, I hit a solid concrete wall with the left front first, and then we were running like 8th, I think, and then I bounced off that back into traffic and got hit in the right side door and started bouncing, and then hit the outside wall, and it was gnarly. That one hurt for sure. I think as far as like G sensors and whatnot, it was 60 plus Gs from impact. Yeah, it's definitely the highest G load I've ever had as far as impact and whatnot. Yeah, so it's pretty wild. Like there's definitely some high ones for sure. I'm not the highest wreck ever recorded, but I didn't feel very good. Let's put it that way. I was hurting.
Yeah, what's the repercussions of that?
I was super sore for quite a few days.
You just feel like you've been hit by a bus.
Yeah, just super sore. Just a lot of recovery that went into that. Trying to get your body back right. Luckily, we had 2 off weeks for the Olympics for a TV break for our season. Right after that, so I got to go on vacation and have a little time to recover and hang out and not do very much. But it's quite the recovery process for sure.
Is it mentally hard to come back from, to like put yourself in that position again, or you just kind of...
No, like I don't know exactly how it is in Supercross and whatnot and other sports, but for us, like our cars are the safest. I don't want to say the safest they've been, but they're the technology that has gone into the safety side is huge for us as NASCAR drivers. And yes, we still hit things really hard, and G-load and things of that sort are intense, right? But when it comes down to the end of it, like when I know that I'm strapping in every week and I'm risking everything I got right now to go and compete, and like after that, you recover and hey, I'm good. Let's go do this again. Like it's what we love to do, and it's the risk that we take.
It's wild, man. Like I think about it all the time from the Supercross aspect, because Supercross races, I would say that Supercross races and bull riders are probably the dudes that really have to compartmentalize the pain and the injury side of things, maybe more than any other sport, I would think. I mean, MMA is definitely gnarly, but you'll see like a broken leg a year. Like I can remember 3 times where like a dude's kicked through a dude's leg and broken a leg, and some broken toes and some broken eye socket. Like, so there is some gnarly stuff. But I mean, if you look at the top, like the injury list in Supercross right now, it's
gnarly.
Crazy how many dudes are out, and they'll be fine. As soon as the doctor says go ride, they'll be doing the same thing. And, you look at a guy like Ken Roxon, the injury that he overcame, and, there's just guys that broke their back. And
so Roxon's story, so I remember being a kid, or I guess younger, watching Roxon and seeing all that go down, and like myself thinking like, man, he's not going to race again. Like he's done, right?
Yeah, there's no way.
Like the inspiration that he has put off just from the recovery aspect and where he's at right now, like him winning Daytona was absolutely insane. Sickest. Like I'm so pumped for Ken and Courtney and their whole family. Like it's so neat to see him kind of bounce back and be back to where like he belongs. And I feel like getting into Supercross world a little bit, like if he wouldn't have tangled with the lapper in Tampa, like he would probably be leading the points right now.
Yeah, he'd probably have like a 10-point lead.
Yeah. Like he has rode so good this year, and it's so good to see. Like it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you go back to 2017, that was obviously lightning in a bottle. I mean, he looked untouchable. But I mean, if you take that season away, this is the best form of his career, really.
100%.
He's been almost on the podium every single weekend in 2025 as a 31-year-old father of 2.
That's crazy, isn't it? I guess you grow up, right? You learn certain things, but just the flow and kind of feel like what you need and getting your bike tuned in and kind of going through all those steps and having the right people around you to push you is key in this thing.
Think about this. He is winning on a 10-year-old Suzuki and beating factory KTM, factory Honda, factory Yamaha, factory Kawasaki. What other sport motorsport in the world do you think that that's a possibility?
There isn't one. There isn't one. I mean, you even look at MotoGP and the technology that's in MotoGP now, right? Like it's like F1 racing or NASCAR racing. Even like all the cars are super similar, but there's so many little things that you can do to make it faster. And like even in our sport, like I used to think that driver was like 90% of it, right? And that's gone down significantly now compared to what it was 10 years ago, right? Just with the car and how it handles and things of that sort. Yes, the driver can still make a difference, but like the car is everything. And MotoGP, the bike is everything, right?
Well, look at what Marquez did last year on the satellite Ducati.
Yeah.
So what he just did to everybody on the weekend on a factory Ducati.
Wild. But it's the truth, right? Like you look at Roxon on his Suzuki right now, and he's comfortable on it. He's riding really, really good, but he is definitely pushing that thing to the limit and carrying it, right? Like there's not really another form of motorsports, like you said, where the rider or the driver can make
that much
such
difference.
A big difference. Yes.
Well, and I think it also speaks to, like, so Chase is having shock problems at the moment to where he's saying that the shock's fading through the motos, right? Think about the budget that they have to spend and what they have to use. They've got all the best parts. They've got shock dynos. They've got engineers. They've got dudes on computers that are trying to dial in the suspension. And Ken has Mark Johnson at REP, who he's known forever, and it's just two dudes talking about suspension. I mean, Mark's got all of that stuff as well, but it's like there's a real rider to suspension tech conversation and a dialogue. There's nothing from the factory. There's no guy trying to justify his job. There's no new technology that they're having to implement. If Ken wants to use Showa, if he wants to use K, whatever. There's also, it's wild to see just the being spoiled for choice and being able to use what you want to use and not having all of the layers of complication. Like he's in such a unique position that essentially it's like a build your own 450. I mean, Justin Hill, same thing. Privateer KTM, running Enzo KYB suspension, like just literally whatever he wants. So it is wild that Supercross may have tried too hard. In a way, they've complicated this thing that is so rider focused. You know, like you guys can't do that. It's very data driven. It's wind tunnels. It's aero. It's like there's so much that goes into it, but it's like that is such a crazy raw form of motorsport still.
Yeah, it is, and I love it. Like that's one of the things I like about Supercross and even motocross, like outdoors, right? Like being able to see the rider perform at such a high level and carry their equipment at times, like that's what it's about. Like it's amazing to see. And honestly, I wish more forms of motorsports were back like that, right? The crazy thing is, in my opinion, with technology and how everything continues to evolve, like it's getting more and more away from that and more dependent on what's underneath you as far as bike or car than really how you're performing, right? Like I would say that Supercross is still probably that 80-20 mix as far as rider bike, right? Maybe 90-10. But like in our form, it's probably like 40% driver, 60% car at least, maybe 30-70 as far as where it's at. Like you can only go as fast as what your car allows and how much grip that you have. And that's car dependent. Like we can, as drivers and riders, right, or any athlete, we are trained from others, but we also train ourselves to push what is underneath of us to the absolute limit. And if there's nothing there,
the limit's the limit.
The limit is the limit.
Yeah,
like you aren't going to go any faster than what you have. And continuing to build on that process and continuing to come up with new ideas and trying to push to get that extra little 1/10 or 2/10 out of it. Like that's what it's all about now. So as a driver, like, yes, you can still make mistakes. You can still put yourself in bad spots. You can try and push your equipment too hard and step over the line and end up wrecking. Right. But like being able to maximize the potential that you have in your vehicle and being able to get every little ounce out of it without stepping over that line, like that's where the driver comes in now. Like you have to be able to figure out where that line is and be right on the edge of that for the whole race. Like when you show up for the weekend, that's what you got.
That's the one thing that's always, as someone that's raced my whole life and been involved in motorsport my whole life, like I know I'm never the guy that's ever got to that line, you know, and I always wonder, I'm like, how do they know? How do they know that this line is the line? How do they know that this is faster in motocross terms? Like, is the inside quicker? Is the outside quicker? Am I missing a watch in my like? Am I missing a clock in my head that tells me what's going on here?
Yeah, I don't know from the motocross side, right? Like I was too young when I got out of it to really like hone in on all of those details. But as far as the NASCAR side, like when we move around and change lines and different things of that sort, like one may feel better, but it may be slower. So it's really about finding where your car works the best and where you have the most grip. And sometimes that is slower, but at least we have some data and lap times, right? And we have communication to us that we're able to understand that. The data telemetry that the crew chiefs and engineers have on the box, like they have real-time steering, throttle, brake, mile per hour traces for us inside the race car. So they can kind of understand what is going on inside the race car, what we're fighting. But they have access to lap times too throughout the whole thing, right? Whereas going back to Supercross, like they don't have any communications. They have your signboard, right? So it almost seems that like in NASCAR, being out front for clean air is huge. Like that's all you want. Like you want to be out front running laps, being able to block air from the guys behind you. Whereas Supercross, like sometimes it's better to be that second guy in line and learning what the guy who's pulling away is doing. And then once you get to him, normally they don't have time to counteract on what you figured out and how you're going faster. So it's crazy how different all forms of motorsports are in that way.
What was the first introduction you had to dirt bikes?
I was 4 years old. I got
full grom.
Yeah. So I got my first go-kart at 3, started ripping that around. And then, my dad brought home a dirt bike at 4 and,
parked the go-kart.
I was still ripping around, but he brought it home and, he was leaving to go to a race. And the deal was I had to learn how to ride a bicycle with no training wheels, first. I don't remember where he was going. It was like an hour and a half, 2-hour flight, something like that. And by the time that he landed, I had figured out how to ride a bike with no training wheels.
That's so
and
savage.
I was on the dirt bike when he was home Monday morning. That was the first thing we did. And then I raced go-karts for a couple years. Didn't really get into the motocross world as far as racing until like 7. And then raced more local. I was racing go-karts and motocross and everything all at the same time. Just kind of riding every day and having fun with it. Rode 50s, rode 65s, and then got out like when I was transitioning to an 85. So yeah, it was a really fun adventure. I'm glad that I got to do it. I learned a lot. I really enjoyed it. Made some really close friendships over those years and at such a young age, and got to play on heavy equipment, building motocross tracks, and just having a lot of fun.
Do you still get to ride much these days?
No, my fix is more just road biking and mountain biking. Just being on a bicycle. That's kind of my fix, getting to go through the trees and train with some buddies that used to race or still do race every once in a while. And it's a nice fix. But I would say once I retire, I might start riding again. It's too risky right now with where I'm at in my career. And you got to have fun, but you got to be calculated about it.
Yeah. You need a stock.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what you got to get. Those are the ultimate, like, they're just idiot proof.
Really?
Oh, dude. You ever ridden one?
No.
Oh, yeah.
What is it?
You've never seen a stock?
No.
No, the electric bike.
Okay. Yeah, I know what you're talking about now, but I haven't ever rode one.
Bro, look at this thing. It's just a Tesla. This is what you got to get.
That's
but
wild.
I got mine that has the handbrake, so it's basically just like a mountain bike.
Okay.
So
that's
just
cool.
No shifting, no carry on.
Wow.
Nothing to really go wrong on the thing. And yeah, like you just ride it. It's basically just like a big electric. It's like a Tesla of a dirt bike.
That's
but I just feel
interesting.
like this would take a lot of the risk away.
away.
Like Ricardo just is terrified of riding big bikes.
Really?
Rips a 110. He has like the biggest 110 jumps you've ever seen at his house. But he's like, nah, just don't want to get on a big bike. And this more when he was racing. He was like, I'm just not gonna mess with a big bike. And I'm like, bro, just get one of these. Just you have to get one of these. They're the easiest things in the world. So this
Did he
is
get
like,
one?
Nah.
Oh.
I had one ready to go, and he's like, nah, I'm just not doing it. But yeah, these are, if I was in like somebody like your position,
Yeah.
I'd be getting something like this. Just takes all of the guesswork out of it. I feel like a lot of it. Anyway,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna try and hurt you.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that.
Where,
Definitely something to look into.
Where do you ride the mountain bike?
Whitewater Center in Charlotte.
Yeah.
There's a place called Fisher Farms in Davidson. North Mac Park has trails there. Mazeppa Park. We have quite a few places around us.
There's a bunch around, eh?
Yeah. Whitewater Center. It's probably the biggest one around us in Charlotte that has a ton of mountain bike trails. I don't know how many miles there are there, but you can go out there and ride all day and not ride the same trail twice, which is really neat.
Do you do mostly XC or like more enduro sort of stuff?
More cross country stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, more cross country stuff.
And that's a big part of your training?
Yeah. Yep. I enjoy it.
Yeah, it kind of makes it a bit more fun, eh?
Yeah. You get out and you get to get into the woods and pedal a little bit. And then same thing with road biking. I feel like road biking is pretty sketchy nowadays, unless you're like way out in the country, which we're only like 30 minutes from the countryside. So it's nice to be able to get out there and ride road bikes as well and kind of just go explore a different land and cruise and log some miles. But I don't know what's safer, like having trees around you or having cars around you.
Definitely trees, bro. Cars are...
I don't know. Trees don't move though.
Yeah, that can be a good thing though, right? Like you can kind of see them come, you can move. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
The road biking things always sketch me out. And I just would, for me at least anyway, like maybe I just haven't found the joy in it. But to me, it's a little bit too boring, a little bit too monotonous.
Yeah.
I feel like at least the cross country, sort of getting some different trails, bit of bike skill, like you can kind of...
Yeah, you definitely have to have a good group around you when you road bike.
I feel like road biking is probably
huge.
more social of a thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So with the training, so you were at Tampa, right? Was that the race?
I was.
So Jeremy and TK, when they were talking about the conversation, that was like, bro, it's crazy what he has to go through. So you're like doing training sessions in saunas and swallowing Bluetooth pills to the heart rate and all that sort of stuff. Yeah,
so we track our heart rate with our watch. So like I wear a Polar watch every weekend, and we track our heart rate that way. And we do train in heat controlled environments for sure. More cardio than anything. And I mean, you think about it, right? Like, so back to what you were saying, as far as like factory team compared to privateer, right? You don't really know what you have when you're on a factory team compared to when you go privateer. Right? So I've seen all different types of the spectrum here, right? Like I've been with Toyota, who has a full training facility. So it's called Toyota Performance Center. It's based in Mooresville, North Carolina. So pretty much anyone that's in the Toyota family, as far as driver-wise, athlete-wise, gets to come and train there. And having nutritionists on staff, having sports psych on staff, having PT, having 3 trainers involved, simulators, like pretty much anything and everything that we need to succeed, right? So seeing that, like, you understand what is there and what is available for you to use and to be able to optimize your performance. So seeing that and being on both sides of that and being with other manufacturers who have none of that, like, you take full advantage of what is there and what is able to help you be better in the race cars. So for my program changes like every 6 weeks on what we're doing. So the off season I was through like a big like weightlifting, strength building program, and it's turned more into cardio and endurance based as we get closer to the season. But one of the things that we do is definitely involved in heat environments, right? And being able to train in that and still be able to like make quick judgment calls and reaction time and putting yourself in that, right? Like your body wants to shut down at 104 degrees, right? Which is why it's so scary when you get that high of a fever. Well, you think about it. If you're in a race car for 3.5 hours, as far as like being in a fire suit, and yes, they make cool shirts now, which has like cold water running through it. But it only cools at like 15 degrees of what the outside temp is. And then we have a hose that runs to our helmet that blows air, just to get airflow through it, right? Like our cockpit is, I guess, like a fighter jet almost. Like you're completely closed off. Like there's really no airflow coming through it. So trying to get air blowing on you. Well, on a hot summer day, it's like a hairdryer blowing in your face. It's cooler than the outside temp, ambient temp, but it's still hot. So when you're in that and it's 130, 140 degrees in the race car, like you still have to be able to focus. You still have to be able to perform. So,
and the focus that is required is more and more as the race goes on.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. So being able to train and put yourself in those elements and environments, and being on an air bike or on a ski erg or a row erg and like pushing yourself to zone 5 heart rates and all of that. Like it's insane. Like this past weekend at COTA, as we were talking earlier, like my heart rate was zone 5 for almost an hour.
That's wild,
of that
dude.
3.5 hour race, right? Like, so being able to perform it at that high of a heart rate and still making split second decisions and making the accurate moves and choosing the right line and not forgetting when to shift and all of that, like that's super important. So how do you get your body acclimated to that? Well, through training. Like you try and replicate those scenarios and what your body is going through to try and push yourself to be better.
God, you just got to torture yourself.
Yeah.
Just repeatedly torture yourself until
Yeah.
your body gets used to it.
Yeah. I mean, you go in a sauna that's 140 degrees and normally they only say to stay in it for like 20 minutes, right? Well, for us, we're in 130, 140 degree sauna every weekend. Well, not every weekend. Some weekends are cooler than that, right? But almost every weekend where you're in it for 3.5 hours and you're working while you're in there, you know? So it's definitely a wild aspect when you think of that and what you put yourself through. But going back to nutrition and hydration and all of that, like it's so important for not only that, but the recovery side of things. Like when I was doing my Ironman training and whatnot, like I was super lean. Like I weighed like 128 pounds.
No way.
Yeah, but I couldn't retain water. Like after races, like I was fine in the car, adrenaline wise, and like being able to still focus. But as soon as I would get out of the race car, man, I was done for. Like it'd take me 3-4 days to recover after that. Where now, like, this past weekend, like we raced Sunday, right? I got on the plane, I ate, rehydrated, and I was in the gym at 8:30 on Monday morning, training. So like it's crazy how different like food and hydration and nutrition and recovery and sleep and everything that you do, like how that impacts you as a person really, and how you're able to perform at better and higher levels.
Are you guys allowed to use drips and stuff? IVs?
Yeah, we are. We do get drug tested and whatnot, so everything that we take has to be approved and things of that sort. I have done some IVs in the past, trying to rehydrate faster, especially when I didn't weigh anything.
So important.
It is. I don't like doing them now unless I absolutely have to, or like I know that I'm not recovering fast enough or whatever it may be. But more or less now it's just putting in electrolytes and recovering the normal way of just drinking water and putting yourself in those spots.
How much water do you reckon you drink in a day when you're training? Because if you're doing those sauna sessions, like you're losing gallons of fluid.
Yeah. I don't know, to be honest with you. I mean, I drink... I probably drink 8 to 10 bottles of water a day, like the bigger ones, I would say.
Wow, every day.
Yeah, it's a decent amount for sure. Yeah, I don't slack when it comes to the hydration side of things. Water is not an issue.
Dude, it's the most important thing. I got like a kidney problem. Like I only have one.
Really?
Yeah. So there's a massive difference that I feel with hydration. And like with training, there'll be times where I won't train if I haven't been able to drink enough water. And like doing this, it's hard. You want to sit down for 3 hours straight without having a piss. Yeah. So then you're driving here and you're driving home. So some days like you just don't drink enough water. Yeah. Man, ruins me.
Yeah.
And man,
I can see how that would.
Most people, I would say, don't drink enough water.
Yeah.
And like when the difference between being fully hydrated, having electrolytes, like we have a really good electrolyte sponsor on the podcast.
Okay.
Just so important, dude. It's like one of the most important things I do. And I just had no idea until I started having like the issues that I was having, you know?
Yeah, it's wild. Like I want to say the most weight that I've ever lost during a race was like 11 pounds or something like that.
Damn.
And I didn't really replenish at all. And I did not feel good after that, like at all. So now like I have it down to where it's just a couple pounds. And normally you're going to go through that, right? Especially with how much sweat you're losing and different things of that sort. But yeah, it's hard to remember to drink while you're out there running 200 mile an hour and whatnot.
Yeah. Do you get to drink much?
So I run kind of like a Camelback system,
yeah.
bottle wise. So I run a tube through my helmet, so I can drink a decent amount. Beforehand, I used to only run bottles, so it was only under caution when you would drink, and your mouth would be so dry.
Oh, dude, that'd be torture.
Yeah,
so hot,
crazy.
So much stress going on. Oh, yeah. That'd be gnarly.
I mean, a lot of people, right? Like, people always ask. I would say, like, if you pee your seat, or like, what do you do if you have to go to the bathroom? Like, most of the time, like, you don't ever have to pee in the race car because you are sweating so much during that time period.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fascinating to understand how much fluid actually goes through you and you're losing.
Yeah. So when you weren't on Toyota and then you come in and then you've got access to this performance center, how much of the performance that you've got as a race car driver is attributed to the training that you think you've been able to do working through that program?
Well, it certainly doesn't hurt, right? I would like to say that I'm better than I was just from the training aspect and putting yourself through different scenarios. And like for me, it was putting on muscle mass and things to be able to retain water compared to just being a skinny string bean, I guess you could say.
Yeah, because that's where all your water is.
Yeah.
Is like held in your muscles. Do you take creatine?
Yeah. Yep. Take that supplement. And with that, right, like you want to retain water in the race car. But for me, I feel like being able to put myself in the spot that I am with working out and training and all of the resources, yes, I feel like I'm a better race car driver. And I feel like that mostly because, one, you're trying to focus for so long during those races and being able to focus at the gym and work hard. But two, I always have said, and I think a lot of people say this, like when you feel good, normally you're performing pretty well, right? Like if you don't feel good and you're not feeling comfortable in your body or whatever it may be, or comfortable with the situation, then most of the time you're not going to perform at your highest level, right? So at least for me, like I know that I can be prepared, or as prepared as I can possibly be going into each race weekend with the resources that I have from the Toyota Performance Center.
And mentally, that then is going to, like, you've left no stone unturned at that point.
Yeah, I think it also goes back to the focus aspect, right? Like, I know that this is all in place, that I have my routine down, that all of these steps are completed throughout the week of what I felt like I needed to do. And when I get to the racetrack, I can solely focus on driving the race car at its full potential. Like I don't have to focus on everything else of what may have been, or did I train hard enough this day, or whatever it may be. Like I'm at the point now, I guess this is my fifth year back with Toyota. So with that, being able to like kind of get that routine down, and you kind of just get in a rhythm, right? It's like racing or on laps, right? Like every lap you continue to get in a rhythm. And through our season, right? Like our season is so gnarly.
Dude.
So we run 38 races in 39 weeks this year. So we run, I guess it's 40 weeks, but we run 10 weeks to start the year. We have 1 week off for Easter this year, and then we go 28 weeks, I think, straight until the end of the year. Damn. So that's traveling Thursdays normally, Friday mornings through Sunday, being gone, and then at home with debriefs, simulation sessions, and then like Wednesday, Thursdays are normally like my time to chill out with the family and study and look at film for the next week and review notes and go over past weekend notes and all of that stuff. So like it's a grind. 28 weeks straight is going to be tough this year. I think that this is the longest that we've gone straight in quite a while. So it'll be interesting to see like the burnout factor and trying. It's not so much that we're racing every weekend for 28 weeks. It's trying to make sure that you are equally prepared at the highest level for every weekend for that 28 weeks, right? Like you can slack and say, hey, well, whatever, I'm not going to study data as much this week going into the race, but you're not as prepared. Like you have
it's going to affect you.
Yeah, like you have to be on your A game. So trying to do fun things during that time period and making the training fun and things of that sort. Like it's how you avoid the burnout factor for that. I mean, it's gnarly.
Have you seen guys burn out, and have you felt it at times in your career?
I haven't ever felt it. I think I'm too young to feel it at this point. Yeah. But I do feel like I don't know if I would say that you necessarily see it that often, right, with guys, or at least no one really talks about it or anything of that sort. But I feel like some of the guys that are in their late 30s, early 40s that are continuing to retire year after year, like their whole life has been a grind, right? And it's time for them to enjoy life and enjoy family and things of that sort. So it's an interesting perspective when it comes to that and kind of where you're at age-wise and how much experience you have in the sport and different things of that sort. But not only for us drivers, but like we were talking about the pit crew guys, the team guys that travel every single weekend.
It's wild on them too.
Like the truck drivers this year, right? Like that's going to be wild.
Living on the road.
Yeah. So I don't know don't hold me to this, but our schedule this year, like we go Michigan to Mexico City, back to Pocono, Pennsylvania, and then back across to the Midwest somewhere.
And the truck drivers are driving to Mexico City.
Yeah, like they don't stop. So like for this weekend, most of the haulers, we go to Phoenix this weekend, right? So everyone was in Austin, Texas last weekend. They all drove home. They flipped the trucks around. Right, they got home Monday at like noon, I think, noon or 1 o'clock. Our Phoenix cars were there getting prepped. They got loaded into the trailer Tuesday night, and then they took off as soon as they were loaded, drove out to Phoenix. And then Sunday night after the race, they'll load up and they'll drive back to North Carolina, swap out cars, and then they drive back to Las Vegas next week. Tuesday
and it's
night,
only 4
Tuesday
hours from Phoenix to Vegas.
Yeah, it's crazy. So some teams will elect to stay out, right? But it all depends. They have swap out trucks and stuff that will come out and swap cars, but a lot of the teams will end up driving back and forth. And it's wild.
Dude, the
logistics so hard on them.
Are crazy.
Yeah.
Imagine running the logistics for your team.
That's over my pay grade, man. I don't know. It's like an air traffic controller, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like making sure that everyone is getting to and from, and trucks don't break down and different things of that sort. So it's
you gotta love it, don't you?
I love it, like for sure, and not only myself loving it,
but even all the team,
members.
the truck drivers. Yeah. Like you have to love it to do that.
Yeah, but you think about the truck drivers too, on the road for that long, like their families at home and whatnot. Like it's rough on a lot of those guys, right? But you have to love it. It has to be what you want to do. And luckily, my family gets to travel with me quite a bit to the races and whatnot. But not all those guys on the team have that luxury, so it gets tough.
Do you get to fly private at all, or it's mostly commercial?
So we fly on our team plane. So there's a company that all the teams kind of, I guess, lease seats from every weekend.
Yeah.
So it's a company that flies like a lot of the North Carolina basketball teams and college teams and stuff, and then they fly NASCAR on the weekends.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, we have 55 people that go to the racetrack every single weekend with Legacy Motor Club with 2 teams.
Do you sit on the same seat every weekend, or just like it's different?
It moves around some. When the family's there, we're in the same seats, but yeah, sometimes I'll sit in a single seat. It's like a 50-passenger regional jet, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
You have single seats all the way down one side and then doubles down the other.
Yeah.
Yep. And so if the family's not there, I normally grab a single. But if the family's there, we have 2 rows and 4 of us going to the racetrack.
And how do the kids handle it all?
They love it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they love it. So Aspen is my oldest. She'll be 4 here in a couple weeks, and the only time that she gets an iPad is on the plane. To
That's
watch
smart
movies and
parenting,
whatnot.
I think.
Yeah, I'll give credit to my wife for that one for sure.
Is that hard though at home with the kids?
It is, but it isn't.
Yeah.
We love being outside, right? Like we love being outside, being able to enjoy the outside, and whether that's in the driveway having a dance party with them and playing music, or whether it's them ripping scooters around. I have a 1.5-year-old as well.
Yeah, so Aspen's 4.
She's 4, and Penelope is 1.5.
Yeah.
And she's at the stage where like she's talking now, and she is really mad when she can't do everything that Aspen's doing.
Yeah.
So we were in Daytona a few weeks ago for the 500, and Aspen was riding around on her scooter in the driver owner lot or in the bus lot, and Penelope wanted to do it. So at first she just stood on it 2 feet, and like I had to push the handlebars, and like she would hold on to it and whatnot. And now she's at the point where she's like learning to put her foot down and push a little bit. So yesterday we were cleaning the garage around a little bit, and Aspen was in her like little Power Wheels car ripping around, and Penelope was trying to ride her scooter. And then they'll swap. They'll want to do like different things of that sort. And Penelope has this like it's almost like a bumper car, but it has 2 levers on it, and it'll like do 360s and stuff.
Another one, yeah.
So she hops in that and rips. So yeah, we're fun, full of adventure, like getting our kids involved in a lot different sports. Like Aspen grew up going to TPC with me until she started in school.
Yeah.
Penelope goes to the gym with us every single day, every single morning. She pretty much runs the place now, which is neat. But she's just as happy as can be running around. She does like cone drills with balls where we'll set cones up and she'll like sit balls on top, or she pretty much knows everyone at the gym now. She has her snack cup that she runs around with puffs.
That's so good.
They bought a like plastic like barbell set, so like if we're squatting or whatnot, like she'll reenact what we're doing and stuff.
Into it.
Yeah, it's cool.
So you had kids young, eh?
Yes. Yeah, I was 23 when I had Aspen.
Damn, I was a kid at 23.
Yeah. Wild, huh?
Yeah.
We decided after Taylor and I got married to have kids early, and it's just fun. Like I enjoy being a young parent at this point and being able to have fun with them, right? Like when we go to Aspen's school and pick her up from school and whatnot, or if we have like parent teacher functions or whatever it may be, like Taylor and I are by far the youngest ones there. Just by a couple years. But luckily, like there's some other kids that their dads are also racers with me in NASCAR.
Yeah.
So like they get to have that interaction in the classroom, but also when we travel to the racetrack, they have each other
they kind of
as
like
well.
got a friend group kind of thing.
Yeah. So it's really neat being able to kind of have that whole experience. But I was really young when I started everything, right? Like going to the racetrack from 2 weeks old on. They've done the same same thing. A really cool stat about that is they both went to the racetrack at 2 weeks old after they were born, and I won both of those races.
No way.
With them there. Yeah.
At their first races.
Race. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really cool.
How'd you pull that off?
I don't know. I was blessed to be able to do it. Like it was awesome. Like first time going to the racetrack, not really knowing what to expect with one kid, right? And then going for a second time. The second time with Penelope, Taylor took one for the team. She actually stayed with Penelope in the team hotel, not far from the racetrack, and I was in the bus. I kept Aspen overnight, just so I could sleep before the race. And she came back the next morning, and we're all had family breakfast together and whatnot, and then went off to race, and we won. So those two trophies are probably one of the most special ones to me, just from them being so young, going to the racetrack the same way I did, and being able to take them to victory lane in their first race. Like, it's an amazing experience.
That's an amazing cool stat, man.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, that seems almost impossible to do.
I guess we need to have more
I was going to say, just have another kid. Yeah. What are
Something like that.
What are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah. But being able, like, I really enjoy the parenting side of things and getting them started early. Like, we put Aspen on a set of snow skis at 18 months, and she had her first horse show. My wife is into the equestrian world. She had her first horse show, like lead line, at like 15 months. So we started young, but we started them and everything young too. It's just fun to see them grow. Like,
yeah. No, I mean, and if you've got the person that you want to be with at a young age and you're in that place to do it, like, I mean, there's probably nothing cooler than being a super young parent with a good foundation and like being able to raise good kids.
Yeah, for sure. And I think hopefully I can like race until I'm mid 40s at least and have a super long career in the NASCAR world and be successful. And if I do the math right, like when they kind of graduate college, I'll be retired and go travel the world, go see some different things and have some fun that way. So yeah, I don't know. It's neat.
Yeah, super cool. So are people retiring younger in NASCAR now or later, you think?
I would say younger.
Okay. It's kind of, most sports are trending up with age. Like you look at like LeBron right now is in like a Hall of Fame year, you know what I mean? Like an MVP year, and he's 40 years old. And you see Supercross, 3 winners over 30 this year. Like it seems UFC is like aging up. 35, 36 is like the average age in divisions.
Yeah, so the only reason that I say younger is because when everyone came into NASCAR, right, everyone was kind of older, right? Like through the 90s, everyone was kind of mid-20s, early 30s, things of that sort. Like you're kind of older.
Like as they're breaking in.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like you saw guys race until they were 50 or so and then started to retire. But everything on the NASCAR side keeps getting younger and younger and younger, right? Like your start age. So one of the first years that they implemented the rule in the truck series where you could run 10 races a year due to track length at 16 years old. Like I was in one of those first classes, right? Being able to get in at 16 and start my NASCAR career. Whereas before, like you couldn't run anything NASCAR until you were 18 years old, right? So like everyone just keeps getting younger and your career length is still the same. Like it's still 25 plus years, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But as everything continues to evolve and change and everyone keeps getting younger, like the guys, so Martin Truex Jr., for instance, retired at the end of last year. But if you look at his stats over the last 10 years, like they just kept going up and up and up and up and up. Like he just kept getting better year after year, right? But I think a lot of his retirement too was from not necessarily the burnout factor, but being able to enjoy life away and go fishing and things of that sort that he couldn't do on a regular basis because he was still racing every single weekend, right?
Yeah. And there's no like Supercross only in your world. Like you're either in for the 38 races or you're not in for any of them.
Yeah. So like he ran the 500 this year and I think he's going to run a couple more races. But even like Jimmy Johnson, like he retired mid 40s, I think. And then he went and ran a couple years in IndyCar and then he's back as a team owner in NASCAR now, and he's running a few races a year, just dabbling his feet and having fun and enjoying that, right? So, like, I would say from full-time retirement, it's probably a little bit of a younger age by a few years, just because of how early everyone is starting. But I would say mid to late mid 40s is when like most are retiring now.
Which is a pretty good age, really. Like
Yeah.
at that point, if you've been successful, you've made a boatload of cash. You've probably got a nice spot on the lake, and you're chilling.
Yeah. I mean, that's the goal, right?
That's like, I mean, that's the like the best case scenario. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure that the whole 38 races thing is just like, that's a lot to take on now.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot. But you see some of the guys that have run 800 races in a row and haven't missed one. Like, that's a lot of seasons put together. Like 38, I don't even know the math there. It's like 3 years for every 100, right? So, yeah, you're looking at almost 24 years, 25 years of nonstop racing in the Cup Series. Like, it's wild when you actually look at that. So
that is crazy. What kind of changes you reckon a person like that would have seen in their career?
Everything. Like going back to, if you go back 25 years ago, man, the cars were different. There was no Hans device or safety equipment.
Dude,
like,
imagine racing without a Hans device.
Like, imagine racing without a full containment seat. So, like, one of the cool things, there's a storage unit that has, like, my dad's first ever late model and mini stock and stuff in it. Like, he kept one of those.
No way.
One of my uncle's trucks. And you go and look at the seat in that thing, and it's literally a fiberglass tub. Like, you're just sitting in it, and the seat belts are thrown in it. Like, it literally looks like a bathtub cut in half is what you're sitting in. No head restraint, no headrest, like nothing. Right?
No.
You look at some of the helmets and stuff from like the past, like open face helmet, bubble goggles, like all of that stuff compared to where we are now with like safety and technology. Like, you look at some of this stuff, and now knowing what I know, like, I'm like, there's no way I would have ever gotten that thing. You know what I mean? But back then you didn't know. Like, that was what it was. And
well, it was the best that you could,
safe.
the best that you could do. I went to the Indy Museum.
Yeah.
In 23 when I went and watched the Indy race.
Yep.
And you're walking through the museum and you see the car and you're like, that's barely a car. That's a really, really old tub of metal with a motor strapped to it. And then you read it, and it was like, speed 206 mile an hour. You're like, what, dude?
Yeah.
There's no way that you went that fast in this tin can.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wild thinking how fast they went in some of those things.
Dude, the risk
Yeah.
that they were exposed to back then is mental.
The wrecks that happened, like, obviously we lost some really good race car drivers, right, back then. But the way that they used to race and had no fear for any of that, like, they didn't know what was going to happen, right? Like, now at least I know that if I'm flipping, like, I'm in here restrained pretty good. My arms aren't flailing out the windows and different things of that sort. Where back then, like, you look at some of those wrecks, it's like, how did he walk away from that? Like, his arms were going everywhere. There's stuff flying everywhere, steering wheel flying off. Like, what is happening? Like, nothing left of the body. Yeah, it's wild to see.
What's the full containment seat? So, like, nothing can come out. Like, your arms can't come out, nothing.
So, NASCAR mandated a seat.
Would we be able to find a picture of it?
Yeah, type in NASCAR carbon fiber seat.
What full containment seat?
Yeah,
NASCAR?
type in NASCAR carbon fiber seat.
How long has this been in?
So like that picture, for instance, right?
Yeah.
So this, I don't know what year they mandated it. So that's one of the seats, and then Hendrick actually makes a seat as well. So I run a Hendrick seat.
Go type in Hendrick.
Go the bottom right underneath the save. Click that picture. Yeah. So this one, right? So this is a full containment seat. So the way that the belts are actually bolted to the back of the seat, right? Yeah, so this is kind of cool. So this is almost the same seat that I run. So all the belts are fully integrated into the seat. They're bolted to the seat.
Oh, so they can't come out.
So they can't come out.
Yeah.
So like whereas the past, like the seat was mounted to the chassis separately and the belts were mounted to the roll bars and chassis separately, right? So with that, like you never knew, like if something bent, like the seat was going to bend and the seat belts could either get loose or tighter.
Yeah.
Like you didn't really know, right?
Yeah.
So now we're fully contained in this seat. So like this carbon bucket, right? So it's a full carbon bucket, and then what they're measuring is the headrest foam. So like each of us has a preference on how tight that is to our helmet and whatnot. And like there's hard foam, there's soft foam, there's new foam that like absorbs way more energy under impact compared to others. So like when we pour a seat insert, we'll sit in this bucket and we'll get like foam for the height and whatnot. And they actually have a plastic bag that goes in it. And it starts out as a liquid, right?
Yeah.
And then that molds to our body around it. And that's the position that we're in. So that's probably one of the comfiest places I will ever be in my entire life period. Like just from being,
It's literally you.
yeah, it's me. Like it's my posture. It's how I want to sit. Like probably one of the easiest places for me to go to sleep. Like just if we're sitting there making changes during a test or whatnot, like quick little nap, like it's so comfy because it's molded to me, right?
Yeah.
So this got implemented, I don't know, let's say like 10 years ago. And this has been a game changer as far as like safety and whatnot, just with the belts being fully integrated compared to like in the past. Like I said, if something bends, like you don't know really if the seatbelts are going to go loose or if they're going to go tight. Like you're kind of just at the mercy of what the car is doing, right? So now if the seat comes detached from the race car, you're still contained.
Yeah.
So like you're fully in that now. You have the Hans device now that stops your head and neck motion. You have clamps on the steering shaft now. So like if you hit something really hard with a firewall, like the steering wheel can't come up and hit you in the face anymore. Like it's in there solid now. You're sitting further to the right than you have been in the past as far as more in the center of the race car. So just a lot of safety changes that have happened over the last 10, 15 years, right? It really all started kind of 2001-ish when Dale Sr. got killed, and then the continuation of safety and whatnot, and how NASCAR continues to work on that alongside the seat manufacturers and teams and everyone else as well. Like we have a safety briefing every year when we go to Daytona for the first race, and it's just a continuation to figure out how to get safety better, to where when we wreck in those high impact crashes and gnarly wrecks, that we're able to walk away with just some bumps and bruises and able to recover really fast and not have to miss weeks and things of that sort. So.
Yeah. So what about the visibility in that thing? Like you really wouldn't have that much visibility now though, would you?
No, you don't.
Is that claustrophobic at all? I mean, I suppose obviously you're used to it, but...
Yeah, not for me. There are some people that will like hop in my seat and whatnot at the racetrack just to kind of see what it is and how it is. And there's definitely some people that get claustrophobic, but for me, the tighter the better. Like I don't want to be able to move, right? Like my head is tight in the headrest foam. The headrest has to be, the top of it has to be at least like mid eye level for it to be able to like be approved.
Yeah.
And then like we have knee knockers that go between our legs that come off the steering shaft, so that way you can't bang your knees together. Then there's leg boards that attach to the end of the seat that go down to the firewall.
Dude, you're locked in.
That have foam on them that keep your legs like internal, so that way they don't bounce around and flail around and protect you. And then we run like a piece that goes over our legs as well, so that they can't go up and hit the dash and whatnot. So like it's like you're in your own cockpit, right? Like you are fully contained in that. It's neat.
Dude, that's crazy. So one of the things I wanted to ask you as well before we run out of time is you've talked about the whole Toyota thing and like how important it was for you to go back into that Toyota program. You were in Ford, you're in Chevy. Why was Toyota such a good spot for you?
Toyota cares about their drivers and their people a lot. It's like a family. For me, having the opportunity that I had to step back to the truck series and having them believe in me that I could do this and having them give me the opportunity to revamp my career, like that meant a lot to me, right? Like it was everything that one could want as far as like having a support system behind you. Like it felt like a family. Like they not only feel like a family, but they push you as well. Like they're there for your support, but they're going to push you to be better as well. And they want to see you succeed, right? I'm not saying anything bad about Ford or Chevy, right? Like they were both great manufacturers to work with, and I felt like we had great relationships within those. I spent way more time with Chevy than I did Ford, and there were things that I would say Chevy may have done better than Toyota at the time, and things that Ford did better than Chevy and Toyota at the time, right? So each one kind of has its own little niche, I would say, of where the performance and how they all interact within like a family setting and whatnot, or a team setting, I would say. But for me, the Toyota side of things and having that support system behind me and pushing me has been amazing. Like it's definitely felt like a family vibe for me. And I've enjoyed really every aspect of it.
That's cool, yeah, because sometimes racing can be just very cutthroat.
Yes.
And it's a very harsh, like by nature, it's a very harsh environment, you know?
Yep.
So yeah, it's just cool. I just threw out the chat, like it seemed like a pretty big, you know, theme was that felt like a real kind of home for you.
Yeah, it did. And it still does. Like I feel like if I would not have won, I don't know what that would have done for me, right? In the truck series when I step back. But at the same time, me taking the risk on myself was big from the performance side and like showing that I could win. But for them to take the risk on me as well and like offer me that seat compared to offering a young guy coming in that may have more talent or whatever it may be, like they saw something in me and they're like,
that
hey,
you might not have even seen in yourself at that time.
They were like, hey, I want this to happen. And it's been history since. Like we've won a lot of races together, and we've definitely pushed each other a lot at times and have had to figure things out along the way of like, hey, we don't really know where this is going to go, right? Like when we sat down and figured out, okay, I'm going to go truck racing. I didn't know for how many years. I didn't know if I was going to get the shot to go Xfinity racing. I didn't know if I was going to go Cup racing again. Like that whole master plan was not like guaranteed, right? So like we knew that there was maybe opportunity down the line. Like if I performed and I did well and I won races and we're good to go and everything else, then there was going to be opportunity. We knew what the end goal was, and that was to get back to the Cup Series while winning a bunch of races and try and win races and championships in the Cup Series together one day. But without the risk being involved in that, like no one would have ever known. Like I would have hopefully still been in the Cup Series, but probably not where I'm at right now.
What were you missing at the start? That first season of Cup racing that you did, and you were 20th, 30th, mid-pack, nowhere near the front. What were you missing? Now that you can look back and hindsight's 2020.
I think COVID played a big factor into that, to be completely honest with you. I think if I would have stayed another year, there could have been progression there for sure. But with COVID, we were showing up. I was a rookie, no practice. You literally showed up and you raced. That was it. Like my first laps in a Cup car around all of these places that we were going to were first laps of the race. So you had to figure it out on the fly.
That is insane.
Yeah. So I feel like that. And then I feel like I kind of knew what I was getting myself into. Like I think they had won one or two races before, but they were at Talladega or Daytona, only super speedway races, and everywhere else the team had kind of run 20th to 30th every week, right? They weren't a top dog, but they were more of like a privateer team. Like they weren't a factory team, right?
Yeah.
So there was a lot of progression that had to be made. I think over the last couple of years, that team has definitely gotten a lot better, right? But I think the progression side when I was there wasn't much progression. Like we weren't really getting better week to week, right? Like we're kind of just stagnant, and I didn't see a lot of progression like coming as far as personnel and things that they were pushing. Like it seemed as if like they were content with where they were running, and like it was fun for them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is like there was no real security like long term of being there, right? So like running 25th every week, you're not necessarily turning heads to the top teams in the Cup Series, right? And eventually you get forgotten about from running there,
and
right?
you just slowly fade away.
Yep. And for me being 23 at the time, like when you're winning races and you're running up front and leading laps, like everyone's kind of talking about you, like you're known, and it's not even necessarily about being known, but in NASCAR, it's about
job security.
Your name getting mentioned and job security for a long career, right? And a long future at being able to perform. Now, when we had good weeks and you'd run top 10, top 15 and whatnot, like it was super solid. Like there were people definitely paying attention to that because everyone knew and expected that car to run 25th or 30th every week, right?
Yeah.
It's like when you ran better, it was acknowledged, but it was very hard to run better than that every week.
Yeah. No, it makes total sense. So before you go, who's winning the 450 Supercross title?
Oh, I really want to say Ken, but it's going to take some big mistakes out of Cooper. Like I think,
which he doesn't make often.
No. So like it to me, Cooper. To me, Cooper, it takes him like 4 or 5 weeks to get going, right? Like 4 or 5 weeks to kind of get in a rhythm, get going. Like he's up towards the front, but not really podiuming, and running solid. And then after that 4 or 5 weeks in, like he starts to like pick it up. And it's every year like that, in my opinion.
It's
right?
crazy, eh?
Yeah. Like I don't know
as soon as
how
he goes
that
east.
works. Yeah. So for me, I think that it's Cooper's title to lose right now, right? Unless he gets tangled with a lap rider like Kenny did or something like that. Like I know Sexton's in the mix, but it's been up or down for Chase. So I think it's either going to be Cooper or Ken. It's whoever can not make mistakes. And if Ken can keep running up front and winning races and Cooper makes a couple mistakes, he's going to be right back in it.
Isn't it crazy that it's 2025 and we're talking about a title showdown between Cooper Webb and Ken Roczen?
It's wild, isn't it? I mean, if Tomac didn't get hurt, I thought he was the title favorite this year.
For sure. Yeah. 250. East-West shootout this weekend. Who wins that?
Oh,
you got 75 star bikes to pick from. So if you say one of those, the money, that's the smart money.
I mean, you can't really bet against Hayden, I don't think. Hayden's riding really good right now.
He looked froggy in Texas, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He looked really good. So I'm going to have to go Hayden winning this weekend for sure. I think that he's on it right now. RJ has looked good too. He looked really good in Tampa for the first East Coast and went down with a tough block, I think, early in the main.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think Pro Circuit's kind of out of it right now with everyone getting hurt. And even the East Coast star guys, like there's so many of those guys that have gotten hurt. Ancine still looks good, right? But the rest of the guys, I mean, it's all over the place.
It's been a bloodbath, dude, eh? It's been crazy.
It's whoever can stay healthy at this point, let's put it that way.
Yeah, I know, it's wild. Well, dude, this was awesome. I really, really appreciate it. It was very, very cool to hear your story, see what you guys are doing on YouTube, and man, just awesome. It's really, really cool to just see someone that appreciates their job as much as you do.
Well, I appreciate that, and appreciate you having me on. It was fun to sit here and catch up. Maybe we can do another episode from Daytona 500 next year.
Sounds good. Yeah, I need to get to a race.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Thanks very much, bro. If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. And to listen to the full 3-hour podcast, search Gypsy Tales in your favorite podcast platform or click the link in the description below. Gypsy Gang.